record this hearing tonight. Make sure it's working, and it is. Okay. So tonight we have 4 matters on. My name is Jocelyn Campbell, and I'm an attorney, but that doesn't matter. I'm chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals for Nahant, and we're going to hear your matter tonight. For Mr. Maletti is first, and that is for 4 Copper Beach Lane. But before we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping type things that we have to do. One of them is I need the board members to tell me if they reviewed the minutes from the May 3rd meeting that I sent around today. And if they had a chance, somebody could bring a motion to approve those minutes, that'd be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the outstanding minutes that Mr. Raworth put together.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to second that?
Yeah, David McCool, I'll second that motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, great. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Roll call, please.
Peter Barber, aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin? We can't hear you, Caitlin.
She's on. Oh,
Try turning up your volume.
she's.
So Jocelyn Campbell, aye, by the way. That's 4 out of 5. So that motion passes for that purpose.
Wonder
Maybe
if
give us a thumbs up, Caitlin, if you approve.
I'm wondering if her speakers are not. I'm sorry, her microphone is not turned on. Sometimes, even though you're not muted, your microphone might not be turned on.
Right. Can you hear us, Caitlin?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you call in on your phone? Do you need the number? Okay. Just take your cell phone and call us. And we can and you can put it on speaker, and then it'd just be like your own, it'd be like the same thing. It's Caitlin's first time joining tonight as a voting member.
She's a silent member.
It's all right. Take your time. Yes, I'll send you the dial in 1 second.
So they turned it down and it stuck. But it must have been recycled. So it should go back on it. Yeah, I took it in 77. It was in 79.
Can you hear me now?
Uh-oh. Yes. Yes. Oh, somebody else has their. Somebody else is using a dual, because I was echoing as well.
Right. So now, Caitlin, you need to disable your microphone.
I'm muted on my computer.
Beautiful.
Then you need to shut off your cell phone, if that's the case.
I just unmuted to talk.
Okay, well, there's a way to do it. If you look over to the left, and if you click on where it says mute, right, there's a little cursor next to it. If you click on that, there's a option for switch to phone audio. And they'll give you a little number to key in so that we don't have that echo all night. Bottom left of your computer, where it says mute, to the right of that, there's a little up cursor like thing. Press that. It'll say switch to phone audio. Okay? See that?
I see that.
Okay. Then you click on that.
Did that work? I think it worked.
All right, good.
Sorry that took so long, everyone.
It's okay. Those things happen. Everybody has to get on there, so it's okay. All right, so let's get started. It is now a little after 5. I think it's like 5:05.
7.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start with 34 Copper Beach Lane first. I'm going to read in the governor's order and the advertisement for tonight's hearing. So a notice was published in the Lynn item, and it was starts like this. A public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday, May 17th via remote technology pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And what else? We'll be conducting our meeting via Zoom. Everybody's got the information. Our first meeting is on the petition filed by Richard Moletti for the property located at 4 Copper Beach Lane, Nahant, Mass, seeking a variance. The inspector of buildings has denied a building permit because the proposed accessory building is in violation of section 5.03 of the zoning bylaws of the town of Nahant, where the proposed left side setback is 3 feet, where the minimum allowed is 10 feet, and the proposed rear setback is 3 feet, where the minimum allowed is 20 feet. Okay. So now what's going to happen next is I'm going to introduce the board members, and I'll explain the hearing process, which really is just that your counsel or you would, or the applicant would present their case. And then we will have questions and comments, and then we will see if anyone's here to speak in favor or in opposition. We will then deliberate the matter, and we'll take some motions and make a decision hopefully this evening. Okay? So introducing the board members that we have before us tonight, we have myself, Jocelyn Campbell, Peter Barber, David McCool, Michael Raworth, and Caitlin Kelly. All right. And so if your counsel would like to begin, and before you do, Steve Smith, let me just tell you something, is that we do have 4 matters on tonight. We know you're a great orator. We have all kind of reviewed things. So we do want to kind of keep things as quick as we can while you're still advocating for your client, of course. But I have a question before you even start, and that is, we seem to be short a plan. Am I missing something here? We seem to be short a plan.
To the chair, I'm struggling to hear you. And I don't know if it's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, I'm not hearing everything you're saying. I look like I'm getting real close to the screens because I'm trying to get close to the microphone, but I may not have heard everything you said.
Okay.
You're coming in a little bit distorted on my end too, Jocelyn.
I am? All right, well,
Yeah.
I may have to do the call in as well.
Have you got earphones?
I do, I've got everything here.
Earphones sometimes help with the microphone.
Yeah, I know, but I think for me, it's much easier this way than dealing with the computer. So I'm just going to call it in a second. Sorry, buddy.
I think the answer to your question is the documents that the board members and reviewing agencies should have received would have included the application. It would have included the denial letter and the worksheet from the building inspector. It would have included a plot plan, a 20-scale plot plan that was prepared by Charles Fair, and it would have been an 8.5 by 11 sheet showing elevations of the proposed structure.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Please enter the meeting passcode followed by pound. You entered entered 1955019. This meeting passcode is invalid. Please re-enter the meeting passcode followed. You are in the meeting now. There are 13 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
One moment. Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Can everyone hear me okay now?
You're echoing. So you may need to mute your mic on the Zoom side.
Am I still echoing?
No.
All right, so we're good. Are we ready to start now? Is everyone ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I did receive the plan I'm looking for, though, is a certified plot plan. The one we have is a proposed plot plan. But let's just proceed. Attorney Smith, you want to get going and start your case? We're all on board.
Yes, thank you. Stephen Smith representing Richard Maletti, who is a property owner at 4 Copper Beach Lane. I believe he's been the owner of the property probably for the better part of 30 years. The home is located in R2 residential, single-family residential district. It was initially constructed in 1948, I believe prior to some of the zoning dimensional requirements that are on the books today. More recently, in my recollection, is 15, maybe 20 years ago, time flies, there was a second floor addition added onto the property. It's unique in that it's located on a dead-end street about 200 feet long, more or less. There's a 70-foot diameter radius at the end. If you look at that plot plan, if you have the Chuck Fair plot plan, you're going to see front yard setbacks of about 21 to 20 feet, depending on which corner you measure to. You're going to see a right side setback, and it's angled, but it goes from 14 and widens out to 35 feet. The left side, measuring from the one-story addition on the left side of the property, has a setback of about 20 feet, more or less. There's also an existing shed on the property that has a setback about a foot or two at most. What's being proposed by Mr. Maletti is to, in the location with existing shed, is to construct a single-story garage with dimensions of 24 feet long, or I guess deep, 12 feet wide, and a pitched roof with a height of 12 feet. There were some building elevations. If you see them on the garage, the front elevation that you'd be seeing from Copper Beach Lane shows a garage door. The right side elevation, which is what you would see if you were on Mr. Maletti's property looking to your left, shows an access doorway and windows and small window dormers for natural light. If you're on the neighbor's side to the left on Copper Beach Lane, you're going to see a side with no windows or no openings. And to the rear of the property, which faces the rear of the homes that front on Nahant Road, again, other than for ventilation purposes, there are no openings or no windows.
The length on that is 28 feet, excuse me. You said 24, it's 28.
I definitely said 24, and I stand corrected on that. That voice you just heard is Mr. Maletti, the property owner and the applicant, who is available by telephone this evening. As I said earlier, the height of the structure is 12 feet, where actually 16 feet is allowable for a detached pitched roof garage. The front setback is significant. It's located in the rear yard. It's 50 feet plus from Copper Beach Lane. The right side, to the extent that it's applicable, is about 70 feet between the right sideline and the new structure, proposed structure, is the existing dwelling. The left side and the rear are both 3 feet, which is what brings us before the Zoning Board of Appeals tonight. Lot coverage with the new structure will increase from 17 to 22%, which is still below the threshold of 25% for the R2 district. Open space will decrease from 78% to 73%, which is well in excess of the minimum 40% that's required in that zoning district. And all those notations were calculated by the surveyor, and I believe are included on that plan that Mr. Fair had prepared. So as I stated, we're requesting a variance to allow the construction of a new garage with a 3-foot left side setback where 10 feet is required, and a 3-foot rear yard where 20 feet is required. Factors that we would hope that the board should consider in their deliberations over this request is the low profile of the structure. It's kept as low as it could be and still be a functional garage at 12 feet, well below the 16 feet that might have been more of a visual issue for immediate butters. Strategically not having any openings that are facing abutting properties to maintain the existing privacy that they're enjoying right now. If you're familiar with the property, it's surrounded by a stockade fence. And so again, for privacy purposes, not only are there no openings, but there's a stockade fence separating the structure from surrounding properties. If you look at the proposed structure's location with respect to improvements on other properties beyond the fence line, there's also a significant separation between the structures. The existing homes have side yards equal to or in rear yards in excess of what's required by zoning. And so there's a good deal of space available for privacy and for air circulation and beyond. The proposed structure, as it stated earlier, is not going to result in overdevelopment of the property. We're still going to be well above the requirements for open space, and we're going to be below the threshold for building coverage. And it says perhaps a more minor point, the existing structure is going to be further from the surrounding properties than the existing shed. We're requesting a variance. The standard for a variance is for the board to find that owing to circumstances related to the lot's soil condition, shape, or topography, that a literal enforcement will result in a hardship to the property owner, and relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying the intent of the zoning bylaw. In support of those findings, I would offer, the initial filing was supplemented with 3 exhibits. It was what happened when you crayons to lawyers that were intended to illustrate what would happen if this lot were more regularly shaped. And so you should have plans. So plan 1 of existing condition, plan 2 with a different set of circumstances, plan 3 with another set of circumstances. What I was attempting to illustrate is that the existing lot with the existing home is an odd shaped lot. I don't think Mr. Casper is available right now, but he probably know better than the rest of us. I believe it's described as an irregular polygon or irregular quadrilateral, something to that effect. The lot is on a turnaround area. There's a significant bite out of the front yard from the radius of that 70-foot wide turnaround. The property with the zoning setbacks were in place at that time, the existing dwelling, in order to meet those requirements, could essentially only be situated in that one location that you see it as right now, which is restricting the opportunity to do any other construction on the lot. To try to illustrate that, I took the radius portion out of the property and extended the angled right sideline to what would be a extension of Copper Beach Lane without the turnaround, and showed that if that were the case, the home of the same dimensions could have been located on the property differently, and the structure that's being proposed could be constructed without any zoning relief. And so that Exhibit 2 tries to show a building envelope that respects the 10-foot setbacks on the side and 20-foot in the rear, and shows where the house could have been located on a more regularly shaped lot, and where the garage could be located and meet all the setback requirements. Plan number 3 shows the radius with a right sideline that is not angled, but square to a extension of Copper Beach Lane. It is again trying to show a much more opportunity for location of the primary structure on it, and all kinds of opportunity to locate a garage of the dimensions being proposed by Mr. Maletti that would not require any zoning relief. And so we think our position is there is something unique about the lot shape that required us to come to the zoning board of appeals to add any other structures, accessory structures on the lot. As to the literal enforcement resulting in a substantial hardship, without zoning relief, essentially no accessory structures can be added. And so it's pretty much an all or nothing. You could not add the garage without any form of relief. And to the point of granting the variance without substantial detriment to the public good or minimizing the intent of the bylaw, I would get a point to that it's a low profile structure. It respects neighbors' privacies by not having the openings on the sides that are facing the properties. It does not result in overdevelopment lot as measured by the dimensional requirements of an R2 district. And lastly, and I think these can be helpful in some instances, is what is the opinion of the neighbors? And they may or may not be present on tonight's Zoom here, and I hope that they are. But Mr. Maletti had gone and shared his plans with his neighbors on Copper Beach Lane and on Nahant Road, who back up to his property to get their opinion on him. And without exception, each of them had signed off in support of his petition. That is all I planned in terms of an initial presentation to the board, and certainly Mr. Maletti and I are available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Attorney Smith. Okay, so now that we've heard from the applicant, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor tonight of this petition? Okay.
The applicant may want to speak in favor.
We received a list of persons and an actual map showing all the persons who their addresses where they would be located who have signed. I can't read all of the signatures right now. There are several, but I will show on my screen that as part of the record. Let's see. I'm going to show you on my screen what that looks like. Okay. So first of all, this is a supplemental plan that we received in case anyone didn't get a look at this. This is the existing conditions plan that Attorney Smith is referring to. And we have the Plan 2, no radius, existing angled right sideline is the title. And of course, that's in the middle. There's the one on the lot. There it is again. And here is a circle.
We're not seeing those, Jocelyn, if you're showing them.
You are not seeing them? I'm sorry.
We're not seeing them on the screen. I thought you indicated you were displaying them on the screen.
I apologize. Okay, now you should be able to see it. So this is the abutters, or I guess you'd call it the assessor's map, where he has circled all the people who have signed the following petition. Everybody should be able to see that who doesn't have a copy. And then if you go down the next page, we have the list of persons who signed the petition and their addresses.
Right.
I can't read all of their names at the moment, but I do have the addresses, and I'll figure out the names. Here's the assessor's map with their addresses circled. And then here's the actual map. Did everyone get a picture, get this plan?
I don't think I saw these. I don't think I saw these, but you're displaying them now, so that's okay.
Get to the beginning, then I'll go over it again with you, so everyone has a chance to look at it properly. The first one is the existing conditions.
Yeah, this is what Attorney Smith was just showing us as far as if the house was the house was situated better on the lot with respect to the I'll call it cul-de-sac. It certainly could have lent itself to a better placement of a ancillary building.
Correct. And then we have the Plan 2, the no radius existing angled right sideline that I mentioned.
Yeah, so what he did was he moved the house so that they could meet all the setbacks, showing that they would be able to basically put it there if it wasn't such an odd shaped lot and the house was not placed in the location it is.
And here's the Plan 3, no radius perpendicular sideline. Is the title of that plan. The hand-drawn, and just depicting these options, I'm sure, to illustrate the point. But the point of my share was to show you the persons who spoke in favor, and I would take that to mean all of these parties who are circled, and that their addresses do seem to match up with all the signed names in the signed petition that follows. Okay, so that's that. And now, so is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application?
Actually, we went over the drawings. You may want to go in, are we going in favor first or in opposition first?
I already asked in favor.
Oh,
Does
okay.
anyone like to favor? And no one responded, so that's why I showed the petition.
Okay, all right.
All the people in favor on record. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor or in opposition? Okay. So at this point, once we get that, we get to ask some questions ourselves and then we'll start our deliberations. So would anyone like to ask any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, I guess I question why the garage needs to be so far back in the lot. It would seem to me to be easy to place it closer up the driveway. In other words, shorten the driveway and have the garage closer to Copper Beach Lane and thereby be able to achieve the rear setback. Is there some particular reason why that would not work?
Yeah, if I could try to answer that, this is a plot plan. It's not a topographical plan. If it was, you would see a slope up. Copper Beach Lane is significantly below Nahant Road, and the slope up to get to that grade begins on Copper Beach Lane and goes up the driveway of 4 Copper Beach. And so there's a slope there, and then it plateaus off in the location where the proposed garage is located.
Okay, but how
That's
does
the
that?
flat portion of the lot.
Fair enough, but why does that make it impossible to place the garage closer to Copper Beach Lane?
You'd have a much more significant grade beyond the filling and the retention. You'd have a much more significant grade from Copper Beach to the garage for each, incremental amount that you move it forward towards the street.
So I think, as I understand it, if you move it forward, then you're going to have to dig a huge hole to put the back end of the garage in so that the garage is built on a flat plane.
I suppose that, there's one thing is to build it into the grade. The other is to build the grade up to meet the access. So I guess it's one or the other, or a combination of the both. But the direct answer to that is because that's the existing flat portion of the topography of the lot, and it just lent itself to be located there.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
And then I also question why the garage could not be built in an orientation that more approximates the north-south axis, essentially to align with the front-back orientation of the main building, the primary structure, maybe even bring it over adjacent to the addition, the little addition that's off to the left-hand side as you face it from the street. I mean, you could almost attach the garage to the main building. What's the downside of that?
Again, you'd be pulling the whole structure forward to get in that alignment, and then to get, I don't have those cutout pieces anymore. But as you pull it forward and swing it on an axis to its right, you have to pull it forward even more to get a sideline, and you're going to be in that sloped area that goes down to Copper Beach Lane. And so I guess whether it's a good or a bad answer, the reason is the shed is where it is because that's the flat portion of the lot, and the idea was to keep it consistent with that and minimize any other disruption onto the property by leaving it on the flat portion.
And I gather we don't have an estimate of comparative costs to do it the way that it's proposed versus the way that I've inquired about.
No, we never looked at that alternative.
Okay.
Is there any more questions for the applicant?
I just have one.
Okay.
I was looking at the dimensional requirements that it looks like were filled out for the existing and then proposed, and that you'll be seeking a variance. And I know you applied for both the variance and the special permit, but underneath the rear or under rear setback and left setback it says under existing, non-applicable, but there is an existing structure, right? There's the shed there. So do you know what the setbacks are currently?
On the shed, I believe it's between 1 and 2 feet. And and again, we don't fill that dimensional table out that the building inspector does.
Okay.
My personal professional experience is when you have a shed, they don't really look at You know, a
Setbacks.
freestanding shed, look at its setback issues.
Yeah, so a
Okay.
shed, I believe, if I remember correctly, a certain size shed, I want to
80
say
square feet.
8 by 10 is considered a movable shed. So it's not a permanent structure, so it doesn't have to meet the setbacks.
Got it. And maybe this is a question for like us or just
Yep.
about discussion, but basically I was going to say that is it harder to do the special permit route because there's technically a movable structure there and not a permanent?
I try to work within the special permit process whenever I can, because I think it gives everybody, particularly an applicant, a little more latitude in terms of what the standards are for consideration. But this just doesn't fit into that box, in my opinion. It could only be approved by way of a variance. And so we had requested a variance for this specific petition.
That answers my question.
Okay. All right, so would we like, everybody likes to go into deliberation, so we're gonna talk amongst ourselves right now. And if we want, you guys, please don't interrupt us, we'll talk for a few minutes and kind of come to a decision hopefully. If anyone, if we have any questions, we'll reach out. Okay, so what does everybody think about this?
I actually, you know, it's funny, we've often talked about how difficult it is to apply for a variance and prove kind of the you know, the requirements for a variance. And I have to say, this is one of those times with the house being situated where it is, this absolutely meets that topographical obstruction, I guess, is maybe the best way to say it, or the you know, the fact that the house is askew and it's on a cul-de-sac. You know, they didn't make the best use of the property, and therefore, you know, again, with the hill on the front of the property, makes it much more costly to you know, to move that garage and put it on a hill. So, you know, I think this is one of those times where, though difficult to prove, this is one of those that I think we're seeing that, you know, topography definitely plays a part.
I guess I would just suggest that the decision is going to be based, obviously, we're talking about topography, the rise that Mr. Attorney Smith just described. And that actually presumably translates into a cost to excavate or otherwise modify the ground conditions to be able to relocate the position of the proposed garage. So that's a question of whether it involves substantial hardship and where desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I want to give my 2 cents here, and that is that, I agree with you, if anything's gonna happen, if anything should happen, it would be a variance. I would agree with everyone on that. Because I did go over there, I spent some time looking at the site, actually went there twice. I noticed the elevation towards the back, but then I asked myself, is a garage really necessary? Do we really need to add a 28-foot long garage in that neighborhood? It takes away from our light and air. I know I oppose a lot of things, but just I don't know, my own feeling, which I'm entitled to, is that it's going to add a lot of mass to the neighborhood and a lot of less air, less room. Not everybody has to have a garage. I think it's going to be too close to the lot line. I don't like it. That being said, what is everybody else's opinion?
I walked by it today as well, and I think if you are going to put it on the site, I agree, that's the only place you can put it. So, you know, I think there's a shed there now, and you can see that as you walk by. So to the extent that he's not adding something new, you know, I feel like it's warranted. That's the only place you can put it, and there's already something there. So
if we were going to do it, right, then what about, we would maybe should talk about what kind of conditions there would be, you know, like it can never be occupied. things like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean,
We're trying to get away from these nonconformities to the extent possible. Go ahead.
I
Yeah.
agree with Caitlin. You know, I mean, ours is not to question why he wants a garage, but you know, there is a structure there. You know, we have all of the neighbors, both behind him as well as to either side across the street, even at the end of the street, have all, you know, expressed that they don't have a problem with this. I mean, you know, I know we need to make findings, but, you know, I think regardless of even if the garage was 24 feet or, you know, I mean, I don't think, I don't think it's problematic. That's my feeling on it.
Obviously, the support of the neighbors is a significant deal. That makes a lot of difference. I guess the only, if you will, asterisk to that is these neighbors are not always going to be the same neighbors, and this does increase the density generally of the property, and that lasts long after people transact and sell their property and so forth.
Right. I mean, but by definition, it's substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. My feeling is if all your neighbors say, hey, this is a good
Right.
ad or whatever, then it's not substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. I think it's one of the problems that we have in our zoning bylaw is that there is no pure definition of substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. Everybody kind of has their,
Right.
I think, their own opinion.
That would be a difficult definition to come up with.
Exactly.
But I disagree. I think we do have a definition in a way. I mean, if you take a look at the purpose for the zoning bylaws, it says that our job is to make sure that we preserve light and air and preserve Nahant for people. That's at the very beginning of the bylaws. So just because people agree to it doesn't mean it's not substantially detrimental, in my opinion.
Well,
So
yeah,
I
but if you think about the building that's currently there and the stockade fence, how much light and air is being changed by adding?
That's there. That movable shed is why it's in that setback, is because it's a movable shed. We can get rid of it if we want to, you know? And this is a permanent structure. It's gonna be 28 feet long. I once had a pool 30 feet long. That is a long distance.
Yep.
All right, so anyway, what does everybody else think? Dave McCool, is there anything you want to add to
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I'm sort of in line with Peter. You know, all the neighbors, they know the area better than all of us. And they have no problem with it. Obviously, if it doesn't, you know, annoy or impede with their enjoyment of life and the air and things like that, it's lines of sight. And I don't know, I'm of the mindset that it's not a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the
opinion
fence is there. You know, there's a stockade fence that's 6 feet high. So there's some of your light and, you know, I mean,
Yeah, the opinion of the neighbors doesn't definitely determine that there's no detrimental effect. However, it's a pretty significant indicator, and I think we ought to give that substantial weight.
so I'd like to make a motion that we have a finding that this project would not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood.
Would you take a friendly amendment to use the text of the bylaw that amend the motion to say to be that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting such parcel or such building, but not affecting generally the district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicant, and desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purposes of this bylaw. Would you
Michael,
accept
that's
that as a friendly amendment, Peter?
I
Very
will
good.
accept, accept
Peter,
it as
one
a
second.
friendly,
In terms of just the order, Peter, and Michael, I just want you to know, what we usually do with variances is we make Peter's the finding that Peter said first,
Yep.
and then we do that one.
I
It's okay,
apologize.
we
Well,
can
no, I'm sorry. We can do them in two. There's no question, no problem about that.
yeah, we've always separated them. I don't know why. I was
Fair enough.
I was gonna
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry to be a bull in the china shop. Let's
No,
let
no.
your motion stand as it was.
Okay, so yeah, we would do the finding on substantially detrimental, and then the other one would be the long drawn out version. Yes.
So we keeping the amendment or not, Peter?
Well,
I
If we
withdraw
do
the
the-
amendment. I withdraw the amendment. So Peter's
Okay.
motion stands as made.
all right, so that's
right.
the finding, and yeah, we'll need a second on that.
Who's seconding the motion?
I'll second the motion, David McCool.
Okay, great. Any discussion on the motion? No? Okay, no, having no discussion, all in favor?
Peter Barber says aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
Justin Campbell, no. Okay, do we have a motion for anything else?
All right, so now, Mike, if you want to read that long-winded motion, then
Okay.
that would be the second part of it.
So I move that the board specifically find that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting such parcel or such building, but not affecting generally the district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the Nahant zoning bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicant, and where desirable, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying nor substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of this bylaw.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Peter Barber says aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
Justin Campbell, no. Okay, so we have just made a finding relative to the variance, what we need to do in order to find a variance. And do we have a motion to actually grant the variance?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion that we grant the variance with the stipulations that the garage could never be used as a residence. I don't know if that's the proper term.
Okay, how it may not be occupied?
May not be occupied. Thank you. As a
And may
dwelling
not-
unit.
It may not be taller than, it must be built as presented.
And yeah, I was going to get to that. And built as the plans presented.
Okay. And is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Mike Raworth? And any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Peter Barber says aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
Justin Campbell, no. Okay, we've granted a variance for the property at 4 Copper Beach Lane. And we'll get the decisions and everything filed in the next 2 weeks. And then there's a 20-day appeal period, and then you'll be good to go. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so 15 minutes past the time for our next hearing. So let's get started on that. Okay, the next matter before us tonight, 238 Wilson Road.
Excuse me, Jocelyn, let's just confirm who it is that's sitting on this matter.
Okay, I'll do that right now. On 238 Wilson Road, we have myself, Jocelyn Campbell, David Walsh, Peter Barber, Max Casper, and David McCool. So Michael, you've got a little break until 116 Willow, if that's okay.
Right.
And Caitlin, you have a break until 116 Willow also. So I will be getting started. Is the applicant present
Yes,
Which is
Madam Chairperson, I'm Attorney Sam Vitale. With me is the applicant, Mr. DeJong. What you
Wonderful.
have before you is his request to build a home at 238 Wilson Road. I'm certain that the members of the board and many people in Nahant are more familiar than I with the history of the lot, but briefly, there's been
Attorney
a
Vitale,
home on
hold
this.
on. Could you hold on for
Excuse me?
just a minute? We have some preliminary matters we have to take care of first. Let's take a minute or two. Okay, so it is now about 5:46 PM, and we're going to get started on the petition for 238 Wilson Road. And I'm going to read into the record the governor's order and then the advertisement that was placed in the Lynn item. So the governor's order, which I read earlier, and I will repeat because I'm not sure who was here and who was not, is that a public hearing will be held on the Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday, May 17th, via remote technology pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And the hearing that we have right now was originally scheduled for 5:30. We're running a little late. It's a public hearing on the petition filed by, looks like, Thomas Sanis, Arian, DeJong, and Habitat for Humanity et al. For the property located at 238 Wilson Road, Nahant, Mass, seeking dimensional variances or special permit to build a new residence in place of a demolished, fire-damaged original dwelling. The inspector of buildings has denied a building permit because the proposed building is in violation of section 5.03 of the zoning bylaws of the town of Nahant, where the existing area of the lot is 2,708 square feet, and the minimum allowed is 10,000 square feet. The proposed lot coverage is 40%, where the maximum allowed is 25%. The proposed floor area ratio is 90%, where the maximum allowed is 45%. The proposed number of stories is 3, where the maximum allowed is 2.5. The left side setback is 4.3. Oh no, the proposed front setback is 19.5. I missed that. Where the minimum allowed is 25. The proposed left side setback is 4.3, where the minimum allowed is 10 feet. And the proposed right side setback is 4.3, where the minimum allowed is 10 feet. So after reading the advertisement, now the next thing I have to do is to explain that we received a letter from the planning board in regard to this matter. I will need to read that to you. Give me a moment. Because what happens, Mr. DeJong, is that we receive an application. It goes through the building department, and then they're required by our bylaws to give it to the other town boards to review. We have to give them 35 days when that happens. And so we have, in that time period, the planning board did send us a letter dated May 10th, 2021. And here are their comments. It's Dear Jocelyn, that's to me. This letter shares the planning board's comments on the above captioned appeal to the ZBA, the denial of the building permit by the building inspector. We understand the previous house was destroyed by fire January 1st, 2018. So this application does not meet the requirements, the time requirements of section 703D, and therefore cannot be rebuilt as a matter of right. The planning board believes the intent of 703D is to bring lots and structures into conformance with the bylaws over time. Also, the application does not contain a complete description of the prior structure. The planning board has concerns over the number of variances being requested that result in a house that is overall very large relative to the lot size. Respectfully submitted, the town planning board. Okay, so the next thing is that after we read the ad in the newspaper, is that you have an opportunity now to present your case. I think I mentioned earlier who was going to be hearing the case today, so you can get started.
Thank you. As I was saying earlier, you may all be more familiar than I with this history of this lot. I would suggest to you that there's nothing that can be built for a residential purpose on this lot, given its irregular shape, its steep topography, its prior history, and the character of the area. We can't make the lot any bigger, we can't change its shape, and we can't change its slope. But a home was on there since 1920. That home would not meet today's zoning bylaw standards with respect to the current dimensional requirements in the town of Nahant, because it preceded the adoption of those, And as you indicated in reading the letter from the planning board, and as the applicant understands, when a conflagration, a fire destroys something, people have an opportunity in most cities and towns to rebuild what was there. And the prior owner did avail themselves of that opportunity. And as I understand it, the fire was about 4 years ago. The prior owner did obtain a building permit, did obtain Conservation Commission approval to rebuild the home, but for whatever reason, did not timely exercise that permission, and that permit either expired or was revoked. The homeowner then chose to donate the property to two charitable institutions, one Gordon College and the other the Habitat for Humanity. And it's those folks who stand to benefit financially if in fact a home were to be built with the approval of the board. Let me just point out, I have represented Habitat for Humanity in other cities and towns, and unlike their efforts in those towns where they rely upon the contributions by contractors and suppliers and the volunteer labor of people to build the home. This is not one of those. This home will be built by a licensed contractor. It will be built in accordance to the architectural plans that were submitted. And I saw earlier on my screen that the architect was online and would be available to answer questions. With respect to the relief that's sought, I think anybody that would seek to build a home on this irregular shaped lot with its topography would have the same difficulties in satisfying the current zone ordinance dimensional regulations. I would note that in some ways this planned home is preferable to the home that had been on the site since 1920 and was destroyed in the fire. One is the elevation is less than the prior home, while not in accordance with the current zone ordinance. It is a lower building than what was there previously. And obviously, this home being built now would be in many ways satisfying the current building code, energy codes, and would be more in keeping with what is required in 2021 than what was required in 1920. As to the use, it's a single family district, and what's proposed is a single family home. The single family home is slightly larger, I believe, for lot coverage for one essential reason. The old home had two exterior parking spaces very close to the roadway. What this proposal has is one interior space, which makes it somewhat safer from the line of sight in terms of in and out of the locus, because one space is within a garage, which is proposed at the dwelling, and also facilitates maneuverability of parked vehicles. So I think in terms of the parking plan and the safety of egress and access, the proposed dwelling is superior to what had previously been there. As I say, I don't really know, and I don't know how much it's relevant, why the prior owner failed or chose not to proceed, even though they did get a building permit. And so they made a decision for whatever reason and donated the land to these charitable groups, and the charitable groups have put the lot up for sale. And Mr. De Jong rides his bicycle and said that's how he first came across the site. Has a long-term interest in the development of the site, and he made an offer that was accepted. And if the board were to approve the development of the home as proposed, ultimately, I believe it would be a benefit first, obviously, to Mr. De Jong, who wants to be a resident and live in this new home. Secondly, to the neighborhood that for the past 3 or 4 years has had to look at what essentially is a vacant lot. I believe there's a portion of the foundation that might have been retained, and I'm only surmising whether it was the intention of the prior owner to keep a small portion of the foundation to preserve their right to rebuild, but virtually the lot is vacant. And so in terms of a hardship, land has its value in its utility and its use. This is a lot in a residential district. There's no residence that can be put on the lot that I'm aware of that could satisfy the various dimensional criteria that are cited with respect to the need for a variance. In terms of what is proposed, we hope to have the house, once approval was received, have construction begin right away. The neighbors have had to look at an empty lot or a lot that had a demolished building for some period of time. And what is proposed is to build a new residence, as I indicated, one that needs the variance approvals as the building inspector outlined in his analysis. I think that Mr. Faya, who was the surveyor who did the plot plan, showed on his plot plan the original dwelling and listed that as the existing, and then showed the proposed dwelling and listed that as proposed, so that one could compare what was there, what's proposed to be there. And I would suggest that there is not a great deal of difference in terms of the prior dwelling and the proposed dwelling. But we believe that the proposed dwelling is in fact a less intensive use and a better use of the land, given the constraints of the shape of the lot and the topography. And so with respect to the public good, I think the public good would be satisfied by putting a residential dwelling in a residential neighborhood and having it generate taxes for the town and having it fit in with the character of that neighborhood, which is one of single-family homes on a similar shaped lot. And overall, I think it's in keeping with the intention and the purposes of the zone ordinance, which is to beautify and have the town of Nahant have housing that's affordable for people and have the impact be such that it's not detrimental to the neighborhood. And I would suggest to you that an empty lot or a burned out lot is more detrimental in its impact on the neighborhood than is returning and restoring a home to this lot that, as I say, is from 1920s on up until the fire was used and had a single family dwelling. So the use is consistent with what was there. The proposal that you have before you, we believe, is in fact an improvement on what was there. And I think that the petitioner and hopefully I can find the architect back up on the screen, and we'd be glad to answer questions that any member may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so at this point in the hearing, after you've made your presentation, what we like to do here is we ask if there is anyone who would like to speak in favor of the petition.
You can speak.
What do I say? With the petitioner itself, of course. My goal with the plan here was to come up with a house that is modern, but it fits within the shape of the original house. It's less intrusive. The idea of the design is that both abutting neighbors are able to take more advantage of light in morning and evening by taking the top floor half back and reducing the total floor plan of the house. And so I think we've done our best to try and fit something in what is, a square peg into a round hole, and try and fit something in that makes it workable both as a residence and as something that for the neighbors is an improvement on where they are now rather than a detriment. I think that's where I am with it.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone who'd like? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition of this petition?
I thought, hello?
Okay.
Did you say in opposition?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak in opposition?
Okay, I'm in opposition because of the sides of 4 feet on each side does not allow enough, because well, if there was a fire.
Excuse me, can you state your name and your address, please?
Yeah. I can't speak up, did you say?
No, state your name and address,
Oh,
please.
Charles Butera, 98 Little Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. And my land goes all the way to Wilson.
What number, Little Nahant?
98.
98, okay. Okay, go ahead, sir. Tell us what you were going to say.
Okay, I'm opposed to the side, on the sides of both sides of 4 feet 3 inches. I think they want to have And that does not allow, if anybody was there when the fire started, I saw it on a video because I'm a snowbird, let me put it that way. And there's no way that a fireman could get up and down that 4 foot, 2 or 3 firemen trying to run up and down, trying to save people's lives from either side. And I'm opposed on both sides of that being 4 feet 3 inches.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition to the petition? Okay. All right, so at this point in the hearing, what happens is.
Sorry, excuse me. Matt Ackerman here. We're the abutters. We're 240 Wilson Road, and my wife Alice is on as well. I don't know that I'm in opposition per se, but I did have some questions. When would I be able to ask some clarifying questions? Or how does that, I don't want to,
Typically, you don't get to ask too many questions at this. You get to tell us if you're in favor or not. But if you have any questions, now might be a good time. So why don't you tell us what they are?
So then, I guess this is borderline opposition. My only question is, when we went through this before with the previous owners to get permitting, my understanding was that they were to mirror the footprint from before. And obviously I see a couple decks added and, additional story and things of that nature. So I just was curious, what the intent there was, and or if that's even able to go outside of what was there before, because that was our understanding.
Okay, so we don't know that yet. We're still in the process of determining that.
Okay.
And so that's what we are right now. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Cart before the horse. No worries. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, so at this point, Mr. DeJong, what we do is we talk amongst ourselves. It's called deliberation, and no one should interrupt us. And then once if we have any questions, we'll certainly reach out to you or to your attorney, Mr. Vitale. Okay? All right, so everybody, what do you think here? Anybody have any?
I guess my question would be, what was if we had the existing information, where would this new structure be in relation to the one that burned?
Well, Peter, I think if you look at the plot plan that he gave us, it shows a proposed and an existing, supposedly. I did see that. But I want to raise a different issue. First of all, I'm not sure that we even legally can grant this. Certainly with all of these variances and setbacks, I don't know that that's even a possibility. It's kind of excessive. The other thing is even if we were to grant something that was within the footprint, I'm not even sure we can, because the 2-year period according to our bylaws has expired. Now, the one thing that caught my attention is that, council said that there had been a previous application. So I think what we really should do is take a look at that, see if something has been filed, and see what the effect, we may have to consult with town council, is on that 2-year period.
So just from what I know, the fire was 4 years ago, and there's a 2-year grace period. Even if the existing homeowner who was burned out got a building permit, building permit would have expired because it's been 4 years.
I think it's 3 years. It's January 1st of 2018. So 3 years and 4 months.
Okay.
So if that makes a difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly does. I think, I don't know. I always thought that a building permit, and Max, help us out here. A building permit is good for 1 year. You need to begin construction from the date you have the permit to when, like you can wait till the 364th day to start construction. But if you wait till 366, then the building permit is no longer valid. Is that correct?
Well, maybe we could ask the applicant to clarify what the previous history of permits or relief was, because I'm not clear on that at this point.
Okay, so.
So, Mr. Vitale, do you know?
Yeah, put this on. I'm looking at the permit, and it says the date it issued was December the 26th, 2019.
That's a building permit?
Yes, the application.
Was there zoning relief
Renovate or
associated with that?
change use. I believe it's permit number I-19-00229. But my understanding was, I believe that it got revoked.
It did.
And that may be, as someone alluded to, if you're not making progress. But again, I'm only doing this on hearsay. But my understanding is that I think for whatever reason, the prior owner gave up the ghost and just did not proceed.
Yeah, I mean, that permit from 19 is not still an active permit. There's no question about that. But what I'm trying to understand is, was there zoning relief that
wouldn't have-
allowed that building permit to be issued? I don't recall that history.
I don't, my understanding is no, that
That they permitted
they
it
got
under the,
conservation approval, but not, I don't believe they were required to, if they built in the same footprint, they weren't required to satisfy the current dimensional regulations.
That's
And
that chapter
I think I
7.
alluded to in the beginning, that's why I had some suspicion about the portion that may be still left on the lot and was not totally removed. Whether that, again, I don't know that as a fact, but I'm just surmising that someone may have left that there to support their argument that they wanted to rebuild what was there. But unfortunately, they didn't do that.
well,
Okay, so the problem we have here is that they've lost their protected status. And so we need to figure out whether or not there's anything remaining of that protected status. And if the pulling of that building permit would have, I don't think it would have told anything myself. I don't believe so. I don't know if it happened, that happening.
Jocelyn,
What do you think?
I don't think that the building permit being issued is that relevant. I think it's more of a question of, if you don't utilize that destruction by fire clause, where does that leave you? And I don't know that that's crystal clear. I don't think that I'm of the opinion that once you don't act on that reconstruction, the lot becomes useless. I've seen situations like this before, and I think it's more akin to like a Section 6 situation where it's not a non-buildable lot at that point, but anything that gets built at that point needs to have a Section 6 finding in order for it to proceed. I'm not rock solid on that, but I have seen a similar circumstance before. But one of my curiosities is the relief requested, because I guess I'm not convinced that if it is a situation like I'm described, that it requires variance after variance after variance. But it's tricky. So maybe Mr. Vitale can speak to that a little bit.
I hear you, and I hope I can support what you said, because obviously the standard in 48.6 that what is proposed is not substantially more detrimental in its effect on the neighborhood than the existing use is a lot easier standard to reach and find than it is to support and find the variance standard requirements. But the problem I think we have is that the use may have been pre-existing non-conforming, and but the structure, if it's gone, is no longer a non-conforming structure because it's not there. But in fact, that is the issue, that you can't build. There's no way that the use that's allowed in the district for a single family could be constructed on this lot and satisfy the current dimensional regulations because of the lot shape and the lot's topography. And also because the town over the years has adopted certain dimensional regulations, which this dwelling that was there in the 1920s probably didn't satisfy then or now. And any new proposed dwelling would have the same difficulty because you can't make the lot any bigger. You can't change its unique shape. And I think that in terms of a variance, one of the things that this is a unique situation in that not only was there a fire, but that the owner did in fact get a building permit. But it's my understanding that I think it was revoked. And I think it was revoked because of inactivity, but I can't
Okay,
tell
so
you,
we're gonna-
explain
thank you.
why.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go back to our deliberations now, okay? So the thing is, I just want to raise this to the board that, we do have it in our bylaws that 2 years is the period of abandonment. And after 2 years, it's considered abandoned. And I'm not sure that we legally can allow any of this. Even if the property were to be built, for being proposed within the old footprint, I'm not sure we could allow it. But somebody tell me why we could, and then maybe we have to continue this matter, like I said, and consult. I can show you the bylaws, take a quick look at them right now, see.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn, I agree. Go ahead,
Jocelyn,
Jim.
Jocelyn, I'm try to get something in my head. Earlier, you said the term "they." Does "they" refer
they?
to the original owner of the property, or
I don't know.
the person who bought the property after that?
Will you mean that what do you say? I don't know what conversation you're talking about,
Okay,
because
well,
I've
just-
been talking about.
So you said, well, you had mentioned something about the 2-year term running out because they had not applied for the building permit. Now, if the property gets sold after that period, does that reapply?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so the reason I ask is, so suppose somebody bought a piece of property for, $400,000. And then, are we saying then that, well, you should never have bought it because you never could have built on it anyway?
Correct. We are saying that. They'd be foolish to buy it. Take a look at this section, D. It says here, right, in plain English, that no structure or land abandoned for more than 2 years shall be permitted to continue or revert to a non-conforming use or structure.
So wait a minute.
No structure or land. Non-conforming use.
It has not been abandoned. The use, someone's still paying the taxes on the real estate. The use isn't
Attorney
abandoned.
Vitale, we're in deliberations right now, so hang on a second, okay?
So
I do think that abandoned is a pretty sticky word. And sometimes you have to look to the intent. And if there was a prior building permit applied for, granted, it's not, even though there's been inactivity on the lot, it's my understanding that doesn't always equate to abandonment. So, it's certainly worth kind of exploring, but I'm not convinced that this is truly abandoned after just a few years, simply because there hasn't been construction there.
Right. Obviously, I don't think the land is abandoned, meaning the owner has disappeared and hasn't, there clearly is somebody that owns the property. And I'm wondering if that term abandonment is abandonment of moving forward with replacing it due to fire. Like if this was a 10,000 square foot lot, if this was a 10,000 square foot lot, and let's say the house sat 2 feet off the left setback, and the new owners wanted to build in the exact same space, the problem is they let that 2 years expire. There's a nonconformity, and they've abandoned their ability to rebuild in the same spot because they let that 2-year time period lapse. That's what I don't think the abandonment means they've abandoned the property and, it's nobody owns it. I think they've abandoned their right to build a structure in the same spot.
They've lost their protections.
They've lost their protection, right? And I think that's the abandonment is is what they're talking about. I think it's abandonment of their protection. I think that's how I read it more than the abandonment of the actual property.
Right, I agree with you, Peter.
Oh,
David
that-
McCool here.
David, what do you
And
think?
Jocelyn, I agree with Peter, what he said. I think they're losing their protection because of the non-conformities. But what I think, Jocelyn, I agree with you. I don't think we're gonna have this done and figured out tonight. I think we better get a quick opinion of town council and continue this matter so we get it right in fairness to the proposal and everything else.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with Mr. McCool. If he put that in a motion, I would second it for the purpose of discussion.
So I would, if you just give me, allow me a minute. If we had gotten proposals, I would feel more comfortable if the proposals were a little bit more closer to the original structure, even though they've lost that right. This is a little bit larger structure. It's actually, it looks like it's an additional floor. And I understand it. Let's face it, you're not going to make the property any wider. You're not going to make it any deeper. There certainly were ways to reduce the, like the lot coverage being at 90%. The floor area ratio at 90%. So I think I think I'd be a little bit more amendable to the fact of the situation if it was a little closer to the original house. It still could be, a beautiful house, but not as, so that's my kind of my take on it.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is we need to have a motion to continue the matter. Is there anyone who would like to bring a motion to that effect?
I think, David McCool, you're gonna.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. Jocelyn, I'll make a motion to continue the matter, just to get a quick opinion of town council on what abandonment means and under the circumstances here.
And I'll second
And
that
I'd also
motion.
get more information about that permit and see if it has any effect, as I said, at the get-go.
Yep.
I think it's important for that before we make a decision. And if we find out that it's the case that, let's say they could build as of right, then it would be their choice if they wanted to reduce that property to what it was. I don't see them getting, just for the record, we typically only allow one or two pieces. We don't usually allow all of these types of things for any property.
It's 7 variances.
Correct, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So second on that motion to continue,
Yes, I second it. Mr. Walsh.
David Walsh.
on the motion. All in favor?
Peter
Aye.
Barber, aye.
David Walsh, aye.
David McCool, aye.
Max Casper, aye.
Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Okay, but remember now, when we continue a matter on our own accord, we have to have a date certain. So we can do a couple things. We can put it on for next Monday if you want, or go to June 7th, which is our next date. But not everybody's going to be here on that date.
June 7th would be preferable, so everybody has enough time to examine the question completely, which I also think in terms of statement is, one of the members alluded to, is it possible to have any use at all for this land?
That's the kind of thing that we're trying to look at for you. So how do the members feel? We need to get, the members who have heard it tonight would need to be able to hear it that night. What we'll have to stop for.
I would say,
Go for the
I would say
7th.
June 7th, because I don't think 1 week is enough time for our attorneys to properly look at this.
Max will
I
be
agree.
away. Max, when is the next date that you're available?
Let me pull up my calendar.
Max is not going to be on June 7th, everybody. That's why I'm asking. He told me he was away that night, and Caitlin and Michael are covering for him.
And I have, before anybody proposes like the 8th, 9th, or 10th, I will be out of state. And while I have been able to call in the past, I actually have both morning events and business and evening business events. So I would not be able to do 8th, 9th, or 10th of June.
Does June 1st work?
Does it have to be Max? Because I've been listening and I've been on here and I could step in, but it might have to be him for like continuity or by rules. But if not, I'd be
I
happy to do
appreciate
it.
that, but I believe when we continue a matter, it's supposed to be the same members.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
So what about either June 1st or June 14th, which is the following Monday?
June 14th is fine.
June 1st might defeat the purpose because it's too soon. for us
Yeah,
to get in there.
14th is good.
Yeah, 14th is good for me.
14th is fine with me, other than is Flag Day considered a holiday?
No.
Okay, just want to verify.
It's not a national, it's not a listed national holiday, I don't
All right.
believe.
Okay, Peter and Max, okay with you, and Dave McCool, it's
Yep,
okay with you?
Yes,
I'm good.
good. It's okay with me. Yep, June 14th.
Mr.
5
Vitale, is
p.m.
it okay with you, June 14th?
And what time would it be? Would it be for the similar time, 5:30 or 5 or?
5 o'clock typically. 5 o'clock. Okay?
So here,
I think
just, I don't want to
Because
throw,
otherwise, we're gonna have to deny the matter. So we're
I
gonna
don't wanna-
continue it and find out. Peter, do you want to say something?
yeah, I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into this, but according to the Baker administration, as of May 29th, all restrictions will be lifted due to COVID. And I don't know if that means we will then be required to do face-to-face meetings, just putting it out there.
If that happens, we'll have to get together.
Okay, but which is fine.
Might make the 5 o'clock time hard for us because all of us are at work still and it's great to be able to get on and.
Josh, I
Exactly.
know I wouldn't be available in person. I know that.
Well,
on that day.
we can continue with having a person call in. I've done it a couple of times on business trips. So we wouldn't have, we wouldn't have a Zoom call. The town hall now does have phones down in the meeting rooms that you would be able to call in and listen. And it worked out fine. Again, if there were anything shown on a screen or something, you wouldn't have that.
Yeah, we typically have all that stuff in advance anyway. On the
Right.
Computer.
Okay, so that's great. So we continue the matter so that we can get an opinion from council, and we're going to think about it. And in the meantime, you should probably think about what kind of house you can build as a right as well. Just because that seems to be coming up. Think about it. All right. Thank you very much, sir. We'll be back in touch. We'll see you on the 14th. Thank you. Okay, so our next matter tonight is 15 Simmons Road. And that should be the Brooks family. And are they present? Hi, Brooks family. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so today is May 17th. It is about 6:24 p.m. And my name is Jocelyn Campbell, and I'm the chair of the zoning board for Nahant. And this matter is being recorded right now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first read a little bit about the governor's order. We're going to read the advertisement that was placed for your home, and then we'll get started with the hearing. And then, but after that, I'll announce who is present. So in the newspaper, the Lynn item, we placed an advertisement. And in that advertisement, it said that a public hearing will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday, May 17th, 2021, via remote technology pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And the portion of it that applied to your application was a public hearing on the petition filed by Benjamin Brooks and Angela Monroe for the property located at 15 Simmons Road, Nahant, Mass, seeking a special permit and/or variance. The inspector of buildings has denied the building permit because the proposed addition is in violation of Section 5.03 of the zoning bylaws of the town of Nahant, where the proposed lot coverage is 39% and where the maximum allowed is 25%. The proposed Burpee Road setback is an extension of the same where the minimum allowed is 25 feet. And the proposed side setback is an extension of the where the minimum allowed is 10 feet. Okay, so at this point in the hearing, I want to introduce who's going to be speaking to you tonight or speaking with you. And we have myself, Jocelyn Campbell, we have David Walsh, Peter Barber, Max Casper, and David McCool. So if you could please present your case. We're listening.
Yes, hi, thank you. So we've been living here at 15 Simmons Road now since 2013 for about 8 years. And I mean, I would just say that we love this house and we love living here. It's about 1,200 square feet. of living space. We have 2 kids, and I think it may be about 1,300 square feet if you count the closed-in porch. So this we see as a very modest extension or addition that would be add about 189 square feet to the total living space. And it would be just a bump out on one floor of the kitchen and the dining room area. And our view on this is that this just gives us just enough extra space to make the house really work for us, because as it is now, it's great, but it is just a little bit small and a little bit cramped. So really, I think it's, when we got the house, there's a garage in the backyard. And I think one thing to take into consideration, although I don't think it has any legal significance, is that we actually cut off about 100 square feet off the back of the garage, so that we could park behind there and use that area as a parking space instead of the area between the house and the garage as a parking space, which is how it had been used before. And that is the plan. So what we lose in the yard area that the addition takes up, which is only really a 7-foot swath along the length of the building, I think we kind of made up for by cutting off that portion of the garage. But like I said, I don't think that has any significance because that was 4 years ago when we did that, and we didn't make it all part of the same plan. But I do think it's relevant to the issue. And so I would say that area, that 7-foot part of the or piece of the lawn that we would be taking with the addition isn't going to change the character of the neighborhood. We're still going to have a backyard there. I don't think it's going to be unobtrusive. We really like the design of the house. I think it's a really a handsome house, and I think this design takes into account what the look of the house is. It doesn't alter it in any significant way. So it will keep the character of their house, which is, it's a great house, and it's a handsome piece of architecture. So we don't want to interfere with that. And then the area where the addition will be, right now there's a bulkhead that sticks out already about maybe 3.5 feet, and then there's a staircase in that area. So that area, the yard, isn't particularly usable anyway. And I think what we're going to try to do is figure out a way so the bulkhead doesn't have to stick out so far in the addition. So it really won't be a significant taking up of too much on the house. So it's just we love living here. We love the house, and we just need a little bit more space, and that's what we're asking for.
Hi. So now that you have presented your case, what we're going to do is ask questions, see if anyone here would like to speak in favor of your petition. And I want to point out that we do have a little petition attached to your application. I saw some names on there. Those were Gregory Zahora, Judy Zahora, 17 Simmons Road, Paul Bertrand, 15 Baker Road, Evie Cardy, 9 Simmons Road, and Jonathan Locke, 25 Baker Road. I was able to read those because they were typed, so sometimes I can't read them. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this application?
All right, and as an abutter, I put it in the chat, as an abutter, we have no objection.
Okay, Ms. Zahora, if you state your name and address, please.
Judy and Greg Zahora, 17 Simmons Road.
Okay, and you also signed the petition, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this petition? Okay, hearing no one. Then what we're going to do is we'll ask you some questions if we have any first, and then we'll go into our deliberations. So are there any members who have any questions for the applicant? I have one. I see that you're not going up to a second floor.
No, it was.
To do that?
Not, no, not. It was too complicated, and it would have really, I mean, I think one of the nice things about the house, you can't see it in the application, but there's a way the two gables intersect, and then there's kind of a hip joint there that's really unusual. And it would really be difficult to, it would be difficult to do anything on the second floor without a huge expense, and also without really changing the look of the house.
Jocelyn, I take it you asked that. Maybe there's a restriction.
Yes. Okay.
I think we've been on the committee too long together.
Read my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then if we have no one speaking in all favor or against, and we have no more questions, we'll go into our deliberations, and that's when we speak amongst ourselves, and we'll let you know if we have any questions after that.
Okay.
So what do all the members think? Max, what do you think? David McCool, where are you?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's a very modest request, 189 square feet, given the fact, it's a family, and I don't think it's problematic given the fact that they have support from some people in the local area.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, this is not a case of somebody, who owns a small house or who buys a small house with family and children and then comes to us and says, hey, we bought this really small house with 3 kids and we just can't live here anymore. This is a very modest addition. I don't see any substantial impact to the neighborhood. I don't see, as far as like even light and air, it's minimal. I mean, yeah.
I would agree on this one.
I agree also. I don't see any problem with this petition.
It's like
I'm going to
where people want to build to the end of the lot and then up to.
Right. I'm going to make I'd like to make a motion. We have a finding that this project as presented is not more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. And
I'll second that motion. David Walsh.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Peter Barber, aye.
David Walsh, aye.
David McCool, aye.
Max Casper, aye.
Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Okay, do we have a motion to grant a permit?
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion that we grant a permit as long as the project is built as the plans per presented, and that the addition cannot, the petitioners cannot come back to add a second story above that addition.
I'll second the motion. David Walsh.
Any discussion on the motion?
Just one question. I made the motion. The stipulation about adding a second story, how does that go into perpetuity, or is that like a 30-year deed restriction?
I don't know. Do we want to restrict it? I mean, I don't know. If you said it's a very modest addition, and they said it was difficult to even do, I just asked for purposes of, what's the plan here? Because sometimes they come back to us so quickly. And
I don't see any need for the restriction. If they wanted to go up in the future, they'd have to come back in front of the board, and the board could review it then. Why review what we don't even know what it would be now? I would say just grant it and let time be.
All right, so
I agree with Max.
I agree with that.
So a friendly amendment to my own motion, is that legal?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to remove the part about the limitation to adding the second story to the addition. So my motion would read, I make a motion that we approve the project as long as it's built as the plans presented.
Grant special permit.
For a special permit, yes.
And I'll do a friendly second.
Great.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Peter Barber, aye.
David Walsh, aye.
David McCool, aye.
Max Casper, aye.
Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, we've granted a special permit for you, and we will get everything filed within the next 2 weeks with the town hall. And then, usually we do it on the last day. We try to do it sooner, but we're all volunteers. But usually it's about 2 weeks. We get everything filed, then you have a 20-day appeal period. And you can't start any building until after that 20-day appeal period is expired, but you certainly probably get things ready. Okay, so you're all set.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
So the next matter that we have before us, and today again, it's May 17th, we have the matter of 116 Willow Road. And the members that will be hearing 116 Willow Road will be myself, David Walsh, David McCool, Michael Raworth, and Caitlin Kelly. So, good evening, Mr. Jenkins. Hi,
Good
Carl,
evening.
how are you?
Good, how are you? I've got Linda sitting next to me here.
Yes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read in the advertisement that was placed in the newspaper. I'm required to do that. I'll do it as quickly as I can. And then there's a planning board letter that I do need to read into the record as well. And I know that you should have seen that. You should have seen it. I sent it over to your attorney. And normally, the rest of the evening, I'll be speaking to your attorney. Where is he? Where's Steve Smith? He's right there. He's here. So I'm just saying hi to you. I'm going to read this now, and then we'll get started. Okay, so 1 minute, please. Okay, so today's May 17th, 2021, and this is a public hearing which will be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Nahant via remote technology pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. And the portion of the advertisement that applies to 116 Willow is the public hearing on the petition filed by Carl Jenkins, property located at 116 Willow Road, Nahant, Massachusetts, seeking a special permit or variance. The inspector of buildings has denied a building permit because the proposed garage is in violation of section 5.03, zoning bylaws of the town of Nahant, where the proposed lot coverage is 33%, where the maximum allowed is 25%. The proposed Willow Road setback is 3.9 feet, where the minimum allowed is 25 feet. And the proposed Intervale Road setback is 2.2 feet, where the minimum allowed is 25 feet. So that's the advertisement that was placed. And I told you who's going to be hearing the hearing tonight and introduce everyone. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have your attorney will present the case for you. Then we will hear from people speaking in favor and against. And after that, we will start deliberations and hopefully come to some type of a decision this evening. But the next thing I have to do is to read the portion of, I'll read the planning board letter, the whole letter. Dated May 10th, we got a letter from the planning board. And the reason we get these, Mr. Jenkins, just so you know, is that, unless your attorney told you or not, when we get the applications, we're required by law to send them to the other towns, the other boards. And the other boards in the town review it. If they have any comments, then they write us a letter, and then we read it into the record. So on May 10th, 2021, I received this letter from the planning board, which will be on file. And it says here that, Dear Jocelyn, this letter shares the planning board's comments on the above captioned appeal to the ZBA of the denial of the building permit by the inspector. We understand that the previous house, oh, that's the wrong one, that's Super Dave Wilson. I apologize. I do have one for you. The planning board notes that the driveway apron onto Willow Road as proposed is extremely short. Cars backing out of the driveway would be into the street while still mostly in the garage. For safety reasons, we suggest either rotating the garage 90 degrees clockwise or moving it further into the lot. Respectfully submitted, the Town of Nahant Planning Board. Okay. So, Mr. Attorney Smith, if you'd like to get started on presenting your case.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick review of the information that I hope the board has. They should have the application submitted by the petitioners, Linda and Carl Jenkins. They should see a denial letter and a worksheet as provided by the building inspector. There should be a set of plans showing the footprint and elevation of the building, which is dated 2/24/2021, and a plot plan, a site plan showing the proposed footprint of the proposed garage on the site. There was also a supplemental filing that would have been some revised elevation plans that you would have received today with a date of 5/11/2021 and a petition signed by neighbors who were at that point were in favor of the petition. And so those are some of the documents I'll be referring to in addition to other information.
Okay. We've also received a petition that was filed by neighbors against the petition. So everybody's aware of that. And I've forwarded all of that to the members. If any members don't
And I have that as well, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
If any members don't have this information, then I can share my screen and show it to them. All right, so why don't you get started? Looks like we do have all of that information, but at least I do.
Okay, the subject property is 116 Willow Road. It's located at the intersections of Willow Road, Intervale, and Winter Street. It's in an R2 residential district, or single-family residential. It's occupied by a single-family dwelling and an accessory structure, which are both allowed in accordance with the Nahant zoning bylaw. The owners, as I said, are Linda and Kyle Jenkins. They've owned the property for about a year. Those who have the opportunity to go by the site over the last year would see there was some extensive renovations that were occurring, primarily in the interior of the building, and preserve the exterior of the building essentially intact, and it's a beautiful home. The parcel is just over 8,000 square feet, non-conforming with the lot size. Again, it's a corner lot as described by Nahant zoning, or a corner lot plus. Most corner lots will have 2 front yards of 25 feet, 2 side yards of 10 feet. This property is truly unique and not any or many like it in town. It has 3 front yards. It has a Willow Road front yard. It has a Intervale Road front yard. It is a Winter Street front yard. It goes from 110 feet wide on its border with its neighbor to the left, Mr. Ward, and comes down to a dull point at that 4-way intersection with Willow, Intervale, and Winter. There's a grade change. It goes from, if you want to call it 0 grade of being Willow Road, it increased in height from the front to the back of the property from anywhere from 6 to 10 feet as you go from the intersection with Winter and Intervale further up on the Intervale frontage. The existing structure, the primary structure, the dwelling, has a 23-foot front yard on Willow Road where 25 feet is required. On Intervale, it's somewhat less than 6 feet where 25 feet is required. On Winter, it's 24 to 80 feet where 25 feet are required. The left side onto the Ward property is 3 feet plus or minus where 10 feet is required. The garage has a front yard of Willow Road about 8 feet where 25 feet is required. Intervale is 4 feet where 25 feet is required. In Winter is somewhat less than 1 foot. It bevels out to about 11 feet where 25 feet require. Lot coverage is 26 where 25 is the maximum. Lot size, again, is 8,000. It is in all respects a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. What's being proposed in the primary structure, no change at all. What this project's before the board tonight is to remove and replace the existing garage. The existing garage is approximately 22.5 feet by 14. What's being proposed is more of a square structure. It's 24 feet by 24 feet. Front yard on Willow Road is going to be about 4 feet to just over 4 feet where 25 is required. Intervale, a little over 2 feet where 25 feet is required. Winter, 13 feet where 25 feet are required. I readily concede those are small numbers. The existing structure is small number, and they're certainly comparable. And that is strictly a result as it being a very odd triangular shaped lot with that multiple street frontage. There's some thought was given to what was being proposed and where it was being proposed. And if I remember, I'd like to respond to some of the issues that were raised by the planning board. There are traffic conflicts. Anybody who's familiar with that neighborhood, I drive through that on the way home several times a week. There are traffic conflicts. As you reach the bottom of the hill, there's traffic either entering or exiting from Intervale and from down Winter Street, from Willow Road. They're all 2-way streets. It's a 4-way intersection heading down towards Willow Road. So the idea is to pivot the access to the garage away from that multiple pronged intersection. And you look at the plot plan, you'll see that turning from directly onto that intersection more towards the frontage on Willow Road. As a result, you'll see improved sight lines, particularly as you approach Willow Road coming out of Intervale or down Winter, because there's a substantial hedge line along the Willow Road frontage that will by necessity will be removed. The overall height of the structure is going to be reduced. It's a flat roof. Well, a flat roof structure could be as much as 12 feet high. With a pitch, it could be 16 feet high. The maximum height of this structure is 10 feet. The garage floor level is closer to Willow Road. The garage floor is actually being sunk about 3 feet below the existing garage floor of the garage that accesses on and off of the multi-pronged intersection. The structure is being built into the grade. If you look at the architect's plans, revised architect's plans, which were intended to do two things, by the way. One was to add more of the calculations for the height. So as you looked at the plans, walked around the building from all four sides, you get a better sense of what you're looking at, not just in terms of relative, but also in terms of numbers. And it also served to relocate a stairway that would be used to access a proposed roof deck, and I'll get to that in a minute, away from the left side where it would be a higher number of stairs to access the top of the structure. To the rear would be a minimal number of stairs to access the top of the property. So if you look, you'll see that the rear, the exposed height is about 2.5 feet, which is substantially lower than the existing building. And as you get towards Willow Road, you'll see it goes from 2.5 feet to 7.5 feet. So it's a reduced elevation structure that you'd be seeing by what's proposed. The interesting concept is that there is a proposed roof deck, and the design of the roof deck was intended to be sensitive to preserving views or improving views for those who occupy and own surrounding properties. As a roof deck, it's a seasonal use, not a year-round use. There's a rail system to maintain safety. It's a wire cable rail system. Unless you're directly in front of it, your view will not be obstructed as looking through the railway system of the roof deck. And relocating the access to stairways, as I said earlier, from the left of the full stairway to the rear, where we're only about 3 feet above grade, is going to reduce the visual impact of any access to the roof. We are requesting the board's consideration of granting a special permit to allow the proposed garage. We're not adding any new nonconformities. As it's pointed out earlier, this lot and its structures are non-conforming in all respects. We're not taking something that conforms and moving into a side yard, rear yard, front yard, necessitating a variance. We're just looking to extend or alter the existing nonconformities. The standard, as you're well aware, is that the proposed structure should not be substantially more detrimental than the existing structure. We think there are sufficient facts to help the board to reach that finding. There are going to be reduced traffic conflicts. That's part of the purpose of relocating the garage and relocating the garage access. There are improved intersection sight lines, not just by the pivoting of the building, but also by removing some of the surrounding visual obstructions like the green hedge. We are increasing conforming off-street parking. The structure is 24 feet wide. There will be at least 2 cars can be accessed and be parked into this garage, decreasing the amount of on-street parking, whether it be for use by others or for obstruction for flow in traffic. Reducing the height of the structure between the existing garage, there's going to be a reduction in what you'd be looking at from any elevation as to the top of the proposed garage. There is no increase in traffic being proposed. It's a single-family home with an accessory structure. It will remain a single-family home with an accessory structure. There's no increase in density. We're not adding living space. We're not adding bedrooms. We're just adding off-street parking. And there'll be no increase in noise other than that related to construction. As a result of that, we think that those factors alone warrant a finding of it is not substantially more detrimental than the existing garage structure. Some may tend to want to look at this as a variance. We think it also meets the criteria for granting variance, even though we don't think a variance is required. The standard, as we rehearsed earlier this evening, and you've discussed in other of your deliberations, is owing to circumstances related to soil conditions, topography, or shape, A literal enforcement would result in a hardship, and relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or nullifying the intent of the zoning bylaw. The circumstances relating to the lot, repeating myself, this is a corner lot. It is extremely unique. It's an angled, triangular corner lot. There are 3 front yards. Plus the triangular shape is clearly unique. A literal enforcement resulting in a hardship. Without any type of relief, the garage cannot be constructed any place on the lot without creating any types of setback violations. The result would be no construction. Can relief be granted without substantial detriment? I would point to those same benefits that I believe take away from it being substantially detrimental to the existing structure. Reducing the traffic conflicts, entering and accessing not just the property, but the intersection of Winter, Intervale, and Willow Roads. Improving the sight lines, increasing off-street parking, reducing the height of the structure, no increased traffic density or intensity of the use. The planning board, I know, has weighed in on this, and unfortunately, we were not made aware that this was going to be discussed on the planning board agenda, or perhaps we would have had the chance to appear before them and answer some of the questions they concerned. They talk about existing conditions. The result would be to backing into traffic. That's exactly what occurs under existing conditions. The only difference is we're hoping to make this safer by turning things away from the four-way intersection. So whatever access and egress solely on Willow Road would have decreased conflicts where they're accessing or exiting the building. Pivoting, the 90-degree turn, I'm assuming they mean turning the 24 by 24 foot structure further away from the intersection so it's square or running, frontage running parallel to Willow Road. There's a utility pole there. If you completed that pivot, you would have to have a relocation of a utility pole. Go take a look at what's on that utility pole. That's an obstruction. It's not going to get moved. That's not something that is practical to happen. And moving a lot, the structure further into the lot, I'm not sure what that means, but if it means moving it to the wider section of the triangular shape, I can tell you that can only be accomplished by removing what is probably the only mature tree on that section of Willow Road. It is not something that the property owner would choose to do. And so that is the summary of my presentation, and I'm hoping that the board might have some questions that either myself, I know that the applicants are present on the Zoom here as well, that we can answer for you or for anybody else who has an interest in the petition. Thank you. Madam Chairperson, if you're talking, I cannot hear you.
Okay.
Here you go.
At this point in the hearing, we're going to ask for anyone who would like to speak in favor of the petition.
Does that include me?
That includes you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Look, we've lived in this town for over 22 years. This is the third house we've substantially renovated and restored, and we've never had issues with causing problems for neighbors, and I don't anticipate that being the case here as well. And I think one of the things you're going to hear about is this roof deck, as if it's going to be a party central. And with all due respect, we're at our late 60s. Our kids don't live in the area. We have a nice deck in the front of the porch, and we have a beach across the street. The purpose of the roof deck, is the reason why it's there is because we went with a flat roof to reduce the sight line of, and I should say improve the sight line to the beach to neighbors. There's no other good reason for a flat roof other than to do that. But with a flat roof, without having a roof deck on it, it's going to look ridiculous. It's just going to look totally out of place, having some what's going to look like some sort of bunker on the property. As far as pulling out into the road, I will tell you, backing out of that narrow one-car garage, into an intersection with 4 roads, the action involved in trying to do that, not to mention trying to pull in is ridiculous. And the idea of being able to pull out with looking at traffic coming in fewer directions will be a treat. I will tell you that I think we've listened to our neighbors. We've done everything we can to lower the sight line, improve the lower the roof size, improve the sight line to our neighbors, which I think it's clear that will be the case. So and getting cars off the road. I mean, one of the things on Intervale, if you ever come down there on a summer day, that road is packed with cars from all over on that road. And to the extent we've got additional cars on that road, it just makes matters worse. So we'd like to get some more cars off the road, and I'm sure our neighbors would too. But there's only one side of that road that's available for parking, and that is within about 6 feet of our dining room. That's what we look out onto the road, and we see the cars right there. So to be able to get cars into the garage, I think is a big plus for everybody. So that's what I like to. I think.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition to the petition?
Madam Chairman, Attorney Premison.
And could you give me your, are you speaking on behalf of someone else? Or do you live in Nahant, Wes? No?
I am speaking on behalf of Paul and Michelle Lenzi, who are property owners and abutters. They reside at 18 Intervale Road. And also on behalf of Mark Harrell and Tracy Simpson, who are owners of a second abutting property located at 2 Winter Street. Rather than make a presentation of the opposition, with the board's permission, I would like to have each of my clients give you a brief indication as to their primary concerns, and then I would like to address the board with respect to some more technical variance type issues.
I think that would be okay. Does anybody object to that? I think. Okay, why don't the residents tell us what's on their mind?
Hi, good evening. Paul Lenzi, L-E-N-Z-I, 18 Intervale Road. Good evening. I guess, a lot of good points have been made and will be made. I think I have 3 categories. The petition we submitted is signed by 3 abutters, one with 20 plus years, one with 30 plus years, one with 50 plus years in these homes, all next to each other on the property opposite of the Jenkins. I think it's also signed as a matter of interest by our past Chief of Police, Billy Waters, on 4 Winter Street. And also signed by somebody who had formerly signed the Jenkins petition, and after seeing more details in the plans, decided to sign in opposition. Second category of topic of discussion is safety. I agree with everything that's said. It's an unusual corner. I don't know how doing anything would make it markedly better. I think it might even create a new blind driveway for traffic coming down Winter Street, turning right into the area where the garage bays would be. It's also very hard for us to tell exactly where it would be sited, both elevation and how it would interfere, and we'll get to views in a second, with lateral views. It may also intersect or impede the existing crosswalk that goes across Willow Road to the Tudor Beach access stairs. And I don't purport to know what the laws are about location of driveways and crosswalks and moving them. You've already mentioned the planning board's recommendation. And then to views, obviously this is the most sensitive thing for all of us living in our wonderful town. It's very emotionally charged for all of us. They're precious and few. Both Mark and my property look through the yard directly opposite of the Jenkins property. So sensitivity is obviously there. I think all I can say is I can't really tell what lateral changes there would be to views. The height, again, depends on final structure and the grade at which it is planted. And then the last item, as Carl pointed out, is the roof deck. For for sure, the flat roof is lower. It has I think a 42-inch railing on it. And I think, when we imagine people being up there for any reason, that certainly further changes our view. And those are the primary points. Thank you.
So why don't you hold on a second, while we're on you, I mean, is there something that, Mr. Attorney Smith, I mean, this is a simple question. Can you explain to the Lindsays what the lateral change would be in terms of height and what have you in the elevations? Compared to the existing garage.
I mean, I can answer that too. We certainly discussed it together, Mark, Harold, myself, and Linda and Carl. And with
Wayne.
Wayne.
About a council, I wanted council to say, Steve Smith, can you tell us?
What was the question again, please?
He's saying that, he doesn't know what the impact of the view is going to be on his property. It's a simple question. Perhaps you could just answer that.
Well, I could answer it if I could share plans, and I thought there was some an on-site meeting where that was discussed. But if you look through the elevation plans that were provided by the architect, what it attempts to show clearly is a reduction in the overall height of the structure achieved primarily by sinking the garage floor below grade, close to the grade of Willow Road, and building it into the topography. And therefore, if the building if you're standing looking at a building at one height and the building is lower, then your view would not be as obstructed as it would have been with the existing structure. So it's better seen as a visual. And again, that was the purpose of those original plans. And by adding those numerics to the revised plan, it was, attempt to kind of bring, some numbers and some control into it. And I believe, I know the board has those, and I'm hoping that if not the neighbors, then their council has a copy of those revised plans as well.
Okay. So the revised plans, I do believe we have those. We got those today, correct, Stephen Smith?
Yes, they don't change anything. They only add information. I'm sorry, they did change the location of the access stairway to the roof deck, but other than that, they don't change anything. They just add information that might be helpful in interpreting.
Oh, excuse me. This is Mark Carroll, 2 Winter Street. I'm a direct abutter, as Paul is, across the street with my wife, Tracy Simpson. The plans that came out today, that we saw today, show a 10-foot height with a 1 foot, roughly 1 foot, maybe it's 10 inches, platform, and then a 42-inch rail on it, bringing us back to about 14 and a half, 14, somewhere in that vicinity. It's vague because we're not sure on the elevations how accurate they are, because and not only that, the original plan that you guys was submitted at the original and that the planning board reviewed showed 12 foot plus the 10 inches plus I think it was a 36-inch rail at that point. So the plan has changed. I'm not really sure which plan we're here to discuss. Is it today's plan? Is it the one that was originally submitted?
Okay.
I know that when we had the discussion a week ago with Wayne Wilson, the builder, and he came down and he was showing us that it was going to move. I think it's moving 4 to 5 feet towards the middle of the lot right now on an angle, which is going to block more of my view and more of Paul's view. Yes, it's a lower structure, maybe by a foot. And yes, the rail is going to be see-through, but see-through rails somehow become closed in. I mean, we've all seen it done. Hell, I've done it on my deck. Wind blockage, what have you, wind screens. That's fine, but we're talking about the exact same. We're off maybe a foot and a half over what we have right now. And one thing that wasn't discussed was the police chief did make a comment to you folks about reviewing the site plan, seeing it on site, because he's got some concerns about the Willow Road as well.
Okay, so we'll talk about that when we get to our deliberations a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so just same time, I just want to find out who else is here to oppose, and I was just asking a question of Attorney Smith when you chimed in.
Okay,
I want to hear from everybody first, and then we're going to take a look at the plans, and we'll do, ask our questions, and we'll do our deliberations.
okay.
So hang on to that thought.
Can you just clarify one thing though? Which plan are we discussing? The one that showed up today or the one that showed up 3 or 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago?
One that showed up today, today's
Okay.
plan.
Madam Chairman, the exact same plans, and Mark, I know this is a difficult conversation to have over Zoom, much easier to have both looking at the same sheet of paper,
Right.
Page by page.
I'm
And
going to share
I certainly
the
understand
plans when we're done.
confusion.
When we're done, I'll share the plans so the whole board and everybody can see it, okay?
Okay.
So let's see who else, because it's going to be a long night if we let things go like this.
Okay. Yeah.
Who's the next person who would like to speak in favor, or I'm sorry, in favor of the petition, or in opposition at this point?
Well, I would, Your Honor, Attorney Primison.
Okay.
I believe you've heard from my clients. I believe they've finished making their remarks. I would just like to have the board consider the following provisions in the bylaw that I think are pertinent to this issue. Number one, yes, the plans keep changing, so it's difficult, but it now appears that the stairs leading to the proposed roof deck, in one set of plans, they were on the what's known as the left side of the garage. That is the side of the garage that's closest to the applicant's home. In the second set of plans that we saw, those stairs were interior. There was a door from the yard into the garage, and then the steps leading to the roof deck were inside so that they were not visible to anyone. And then the third plan, which is what we received this morning, the stairs are back exterior, but they've been moved to what's known as the rear of the proposed garage, which is the side that faces Intervale Road and both my clients' homes. So that's an issue for them. Not only is the existence of a roof deck an issue for them, but also adding a view of an exterior stairway is a violation. It's not a violation, but it's a diminution of the views that my clients enjoy. We all know that it's no secret that the view we're talking about is the view of the ocean, and any diminution in that, even a foot or two, and as Mr. Harold points out, it may be 4 feet, is substantial to my clients, and the board should consider that when making this its decision. The building inspector, of course, we agree was correct in not issuing a building permit because of the nonconformities with respect to the size of the lot and the setbacks of the garage. So I disagree with my brother's presentation, if I heard it correctly, that there are no increases to the nonconformities. There will be substantial increases to the nonconformities. The garage setback from Intervale will be still in violation, but it will be less in violation. But the front of the garage facing Wilson Road will be further in violation of the setback rule. It encroaches more, so it's an increase in the nonconformity there. As we all know, without a specific bylaw relative to a special permit, if one owns non-conforming land and you want to build on it, you need a variance. Well, I would like to suggest to the board what might be a heretical thought, but this is not a reconstruction for which your bylaw on a special permit is applicable. And I'd like you to consider that this is a voluntary tear down and then a new building. And when you look at the project in that from that perspective, which is, I think, the correct perspective, there's no provision for a special permit. The only permit you could issue would be a variance. We think that an alteration is defined a number of places in the bylaw, specifically with respect to the dimensional regulations and in section 7, with respect to the finding, but it always, the special permit provisions apply to alterations which are defined as a few things that this project is not, but also a reconstruction is considered an alteration. And my understanding is that a reconstruction occurs when a structure such as this garage falls into disrepair, is destroyed by fire, is destroyed by disaster, and the owner wishes to rebuild and therefore reconstruct the formerly existing structure on the same footprint, in substantially the same size, substantially the same character as the former structure. And so I differentiate. I think this project differentiates from that in that it's not a reconstruction. I would point out simply that there are a number of places in your bylaw, which, starting with the general section 1.03 and articles 908, the general purposes and intent of the bylaw are to be considered when you're considering the grant of a special permit. And the protection of views is specifically cited in the bylaw at those sections as one of the purposes of the zoning bylaw, which would include one of the purposes of the issuance of a special permit or allowing a deviation from the existing dimensional requirements. My client's position is that you don't need to be an expert to know that if you lose a bit of your view, you lose a bit of your value. How much value? We don't know. But everybody on the board, I think, understands, and I'm sure the Jenkins and all the neighbors, both for and against, understand that if there's a change in the view, and we now have to look at some stairs and some railing and presumably some furniture and presumably some people, this is a substantial change in the view of the ocean that my clients currently enjoy. And we think that change, well, it should be taken into consideration that has not been minimized, and the petition should be denied on that basis. In the event that the board is inclined to allow the garage, my clients would ask that the board consider adding as conditions all the issues relating to the roof deck. That is, the stairs. There's no need for the stairs if there's not going to be a roof deck, and the roof deck almost appears to be another accessory use on the property. It's very difficult for me to figure out exactly what to call it. It's not a deck. It's not attached to the primary residence on the property. Not exactly sure what it is from a zoning perspective, but my clients would ask that the board consider putting a condition that no roof deck be placed and that and therefore no stairs.
Okay. All right, so at this point, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition before I close that out? Okay. So at this point in the hearing, what's going to happen is we're going to talk amongst ourselves, and we're going to ask questions of the applicant if we have any. And then what I'd like to see is, I think the board members, do you agree that, would you like to see the newest plan that we got today on the screen so everybody can kind of talk about it for a minute? And perhaps Smith can address some of those concerns. Does everybody agree with that?
I think that'd be helpful.
That would be good.
Okay, I thought it'd be helpful as well. Just give me a second to share my screen properly. I won't be talking about it before it's up like I did last time. Here we go. Share. Okay. So, Attorney Smith, can you tell us now, I think this is what we're talking about here, for the most part, this particular screen. Just look, and
A5, okay.
That's what you're talking about?
Okay,
So, Attorney Smith,
yes.
first of all, would your clients consider not having the roof deck, because they said early on, they only thought that would be more, look better. They didn't necessarily want it necessarily. They said that, they didn't say that either. They just said it would look awful without that. That's one of the options that seems to be a problem.
Do you want an answer to that right now, or will there be further questions?
Look at the map, the plan there, and see if you can answer any of their questions.
If we were meeting in person, I would ask if I could meet with my client in the hall for 5 minutes and come back in and answer that, or less.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's a way to do this on a chat room but Zoom, but I've never done it.
Well, why don't we do this? We know what we could do is we could take a 5-minute break. We have been on this Zoom for two plus hours now. You can speak to your clients and come back. You want to do that?
Yeah, is there anything else that might require a similar type of discussion just for efficiency purposes?
Not that I know of. I mean, anyone in the board want to, anything else that you think might be, that he should talk to his clients about?
Just to confirm, Jocelyn, you're proposing that the applicant forego both the roof deck and the stairs, correct?
I'm not proposing it. I'm just saying that's what their objection is, and if that's what he wants to complain about, that's fine.
That's what you were discussing as a possible alternative.
Right. I just wanted to see what their thoughts were on that, and have Attorney Smith explain how this, I can see it looks like the same elevation for the roof deck railings as the current roof. Is that true?
Essentially, yes.
But
so the roof deck is lower, the railing is at, essentially the same height as the peak of the pitched roof of the existing garage.
All right, so those are the choices. Do you want to take a break, touch your client, or just want to keep going?
If I could, I'm going to mute. I'm going to go in the other room and make a phone call.
Okay.
Before you go, Steve, I just want to clarify something. Paul and I particularly are not just opposed to the deck. We're opposed to the change in the size of the garage. It's going from 14 by 22 to 24 by 24. That's a substantial increase and a huge, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's going to block the traffic. It's going to block the sight lines. And I know that Carl and Linda tried to show me how it wouldn't, but it will. You're going to cut down 5-foot bushes and they're going to put up a 12-foot wall. I mean, it's 5-foot bush or a 12-foot wall.
It doesn't.
It's a big difference.
And
actually, it's not a 12-foot wall. It's got a 4-foot deck. I mean, a 3.5-foot gate on top of it, or a rail, excuse me, on
Mark.
top of it. So I don't want you to think that it's the deck that's bothering us. Yes, the deck is a problem because that's going to just add more height to the whole process. Our concern is the change in the structure, the size. It's a big difference. You're almost doubling the size. You're bringing it down to Willow Road. It's going to be, it's going to be huge on that corner. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I know I'm out of order or what have you, but.
Could I jump in out of order then? Because the bushes are on the road. The building is not going to the road. By definition, it cannot be blocking the same space. The building will not go right to Willow Road where the bushes are. You take the bushes out, the building has, there's distance between the building and the road then, which by the way, is now going to be open, which it isn't right now. So I disagree with you, Mark. And having to pull out of that garage on a regular basis, that view will be a lot better. And so it's, the rest of it we can debate, but that one I don't think is fair.
I disagree, but okay. That's
okay. So let me do this then. Attorney Smith, do you want to take 5 minutes, talk to your client, come right back?
I'd appreciate it if we could. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to do that. We're going to stop the share. I'm just going to everybody take a 5-minute break. It has been 2+ hours already, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay? It's 7:20 now. So back at 7:20.
Okay.
Everybody back yet? It's been 6 minutes. Waiting for Attorney Smith here.
Hey, Webb, are you looking at the chat, the private chat I'm sending you, sir?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know how else to get in touch. Thank you.
But I don't know how to respond to a private chat.
Okay, Attorney Smith,
Yes.
you're back. Okay, let's get back on with this hearing then. Okay, so where we are in the hearing right now is that we listened to people speaking in favor, people speaking in opposition, and we had some opposition that we're just trying to briefly see if we can sort out before we move on. And Attorney Smith, you were going to speak to your clients, and what do you have to say?
I've heard what the abutters have said. I've sensed what the zoning board has said. I've talked to my client. I just wanted to emphasize that the concept of the roof deck was certainly not primarily geared towards another socialization area or function area. It had more to do with aesthetics of putting window dressing on a flat roof than it did to create more, additional outdoor, entertainment space. The applicants are more than willing to forego the railing, the roof deck, the access stairway, to the extent that benefits the neighbors to any incremental amount and preserves their views, and certainly would be agreeable to that change.
I think that's a lot of progress. Is there anybody on Webb, Attorney Parmesan, something that you think that you would like to discuss with your clients maybe? This isn't a mediation, but I mean, we'd like to see things be resolved. We don't want people being sued here.
I appreciate that, Attorney Campbell. No, I don't think there's anything. I think we made our position clear. I would simply ask that if, when the board deliberates with respect to specific plans, if that's what you're going to do, that you identify the plan you're looking at so we can all follow it. In the lower right-hand corner, there's like an A10, A20, A30. And I wasn't sure when you put a particular plan up on the screen before the recess, which plan it was that you were looking at. So I'd just like you to do that to make it clear.
Okay, let's make that really super clear. This is the plan. And Attorney Smith, could you please confirm that this is the plan that you sent in today? I want to share the screen with you, with everyone, so you can see it. Before we want to make sure we're really correct about this. 116 Willow Road. Do you see this plan, Attorney Smith? Is this the correct one?
If we go to one,
Seems to have
the.
there should be a revision date of 5/11/21. I can't read that on your screen.
Yes.
I can on mine, but it certainly appears to be one and the same.
It does say 5/11.
If you go back to page 1, based on the provisions for the stairway to the rear, that only appeared on the plans that were provided today. It wasn't on any previous plans.
Okay. All right. So those are the plans. They're dated revision 5/11/21. All right.
Correct.
So let's.
And
We're going to move on now.
may I
Move
just
on.
clarify one other thing? Maybe I missed it, but all I have is in terms of a plot plan to show the footprint of the proposed structure is the one dated March 11th, 2021 by Brown or North Shore Survey Corporation. Is that
has not been revised?
All right, so the footprint is the same. The principal difference in the new drawings is that the elevation is diminished. The baseline from which the garage is going to be built has been reduced in profile. Is that right?
And the stairway you see on the footprint to the left would be eliminated.
Right, assuming there's agreement to that effect. Okay.
And so that's actually a good question because I really wasn't sure myself, Michael, like when I looked at the plan, like how much further in would it be? I guess it's.
Well, my understanding is the footprint has not changed in the most recent revision. So we're looking at the footprint at all times as depicted in this 8.5 by 7 or 11 by 17 drawing.
Is that one
We
there?
got, yeah,
Yeah.
stamped by the town clerk, April 15th, 2021.
That's correct. Okay. All right. That's perfect. So let's move on. The perfect meaning that we have it. That's what I mean by that being perfect. Not the plan is perfect. We have heard from both sides in terms of opposition and those in favor, and we've asked some questions. Now it's time for us as a board to get together and deliberate, and we may ask further questions of the parties.
So my understanding
so-
is the principal issue that we're dealing with here is the impingement on the views of the neighbors. In other words, there's nobody who has a property line that is, if you will, squeezed by the lack of conformity with the setback requirements. There's streets instead of property lines that are affected there. So while it still may be a nonconformity, it has less of an impact on anybody who's adjoining or abutting. And I gather that that leaves basically the if you will, the effect on the visual horizon of the neighbors. Is anybody understanding things differently than what I just said?
Sounds to me like what we're looking at is about the same height, but it's going to maybe even be a tiny bit lower, especially without the roof deck. And then also, but you've got a little bit wider map. It sounds
Correct.
like.
So in other words, it sounds as if there is a trade-off because the maximum height of the currently proposed structure without the roof deck is lower by the amount of the roof deck than the existing garage. Now, of course, the part of the garage, the existing garage that's higher than the proposed garage without the roof deck is in the form of a peaked roof rather than a block form. But it is, I mean, if you will, it's trading some existing height visual impact for some proposed width impact. And if I'm wrong about that, I'd appreciate somebody could correct me.
Are you deliberating, or can I ask a question or speak?
Waiting now, so we're just gonna talk amongst ourselves a few minutes, and then we'll get back to everybody. What do the other members think? David Walsh, Caitlin, David McCool?
I was just saying, I agree, the old garage is 14 by 22, the new garage would be 24 by 24. So obviously you're adding, could disrupt views with, I think the biggest thing I heard, because I was concerned about that as far as hearing about neighbors and their opposition, were obviously we heard opposition to that the size is something that people are opposed to. But it's important, I think, that there is also some, it sounds like, benefit to that, in that it'll be taking some cars off the road and making it so that that area is potentially easier to access and park in. Because I think we have to consider whether the hardship is created by the project, right? And the hardship that's created is really the blocking of views, but does that also benefit the area as well?
It also reduces the height profile in terms of the views.
Is this?
Yeah.
David,
Can
Dave
we
McCool.
talk?
Walsh?
Yes.
No, not right now, we're busy.
Can we
deliberating.
talk?
Sorry,
No.
Mark.
No?
Not right now.
Okay.
Yes,
I just wanted to
Yes.
respond to something that Caitlin just said.
But we're talking amongst ourselves, we're deliberating, so you need to.
All right, I'll be,
Quiet, and we'll finish, when we finish, if we have any more questions, we'll let you know. All right, so, next, Dave Walsh and Dave McCool, do you have any comments?
yes, yes, I mean, I think as presented, it's, you know, it alleviates sort of a safety issue backing out of the driveway. There's an existing structure there, and they're sinking the grade to not, you know, to lower the height. So, I mean, you know, I know the roof deck issue, but if they're willing to eliminate that, I mean, I have no problem with it.
I agree also. I think there's give and take here. Yes, the garage is bigger, but it's a lower profile, and it will both improve the parking on the street, and it will allow for better ingress and egress from the garage to the street. Certainly safer.
So if this were not, you know, a waterfront property, it would probably be like the hearing we just had on, Simmons Road. I mean, it would be minimal change, right? But because it's waterfront, we have to deal with the view, and we have to be concerned about that. Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion? And does anybody have any more questions for any of the applicants or the parties that they want?
I think,
I'd be interested in, I just want to hear what Mark has to say, because
Okay.
he's obviously looking to say something.
right. And I apologize for being rude, but.
no, you weren't rude.
Excuse me?
You were not rude. You just
okay.
misunderstood.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The one thing that Carl mentioned, and then Caitlin, you referred to it, was the parking, getting cars off the street. They currently have, it's a one-car garage. They have a driveway next to it, and then they park cars in front of it. So they have 3 cars, and they have 3 cars that are off the street if they wanted to. They don't, I mean, they park on the street just like everybody else. I'd rather look at their cars than everyone else's cars. And I'm sure Carl feels the same way. His cars are a lot nicer than most of the people that come and go to the beach here. But I mean, so it's not really getting cars off the street.
It is.
It
is.
is. I mean, you can say that, but the truth of the matter is there's plenty of parking right now.
There is one garage space. The other one is next to the garage at a 4-corner intersection. When the snow gets plowed, I get snow piled from, and you know this, from 4 different directions. And when it melts, it all rushes down both Intervale Street and Winter Street right into the driveway. So I actually can't get my cars in and out of there if I put one in front, as you say. If it snows, I'm screwed.
No, you know what, Carl, it's just like the rest of us. You have to go out and shovel your driveway when it snows. So it's no different. I mean, I've lived here for 50 years. I've watched, Tim McGuire got out there and shovel the cars out when his daughter was there and he was there and his wife. 3 cars has always fit in their driveways. So I'm not gonna, we can't dispute that. So I just wanted to clear that up. It's not just a parking issue. There's plenty of parking now.
I was just trying to find pros and cons.
Right, I got you. Thanks.
Okay. We try to give everybody a chance, but when we're deliberating, it was just a procedural issue. As we're supposed to
I
talk
understand.
first,
I
and then-
apologize.
Well, that's okay. That's all right.
Are we
So
still deliberating, or one last word?
we're deliberating, but if there's somebody else who wants to speak, why don't we go ahead? Just go and tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, really briefly. I just want to understand if you're deliberating on the original plans or potentially with concession restrictions in perpetuity. I think our position originally was no change, and it seems to have taken a shift towards compromise. We're concerned about views all around. Just want the board to be able to consider that.
It's just a
Just so you
concern.
know, we've already mentioned it. I'm not sure, maybe you didn't hear part of it, but we're talking about the plans dated 5/11 and the ones that I showed on the screen.
Okay.
Right.
So I have shown that.
Madam Chairman, can I put in 2 cents worth or a penny and a half worth?
Of course.
I thought I heard comments from the board members that they thought that moving the front of the garage from its current location to Wilson Street would be safer. And my clients obviously disagree with that, as does the planning board, as apparently does the former chief of police. If I'm approaching this intersection at the triangle from Intervale or Winter Street, I'm slowing down because I'm coming within 5 or 10 feet of a cross street, a major cross street, a Willow. So I'm slowing down. A car backing out, Mr. or Mrs. Jenkins backing out of their driveway, it doesn't present that big of a hazard because I'm going very slow. If on the other hand, I'm making a right turn from there onto Willow Road, or I'm proceeding from, not from the area of the golf course, but the other direction, which I guess would be north. If I'm coming towards this intersection and towards Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins' house on the right, and they're backing out of a driveway, they're, to put it bluntly, the ass end of their car is going to be in my lane. I'm driving 25, 30 miles an hour, or even 20 miles an hour.
Right, stop.
That car, the back end of that car is going to be in my lane before they can see whether or not a car is coming. So I'm not suggesting that they're not safe drivers. I'm just suggesting that it seems to me that it is not safer to have the access to this garage on Willow than it is where it is now.
I think I deserve an ability to right to respond to that. And Counselor, when somebody's coming down Intervale Street, heading towards Winter Road, when drivers are on the right side of Winter Street, zooming down Winter Street, people on Intervale look which way? They look to the left to see cars coming down. They don't look to the right to see who's coming out of a garage. So you look up to the left, oh, there's no car coming, I continue my turn. And they're doing that at whatever speed you want them to be doing that. That's natural. You don't look to your right, you look to your left. I'm pulling out of the garage right there. And that doesn't count the people coming on Willow Road, making that speed turn, making the left, which as I'm pulling out, the same thing. I have 2 less ways to look when I'm pulling out onto Winter Street, by the way. And that's all I'm pointing out. That's got to be safer by definition. So I appreciate you may not take that drive, but I do. And I can tell you what it's like pulling out of that garage.
So where we are now is that we need to decide, we either finish our deliberations and come to a decision, or if anybody has any other options. Dave Walsh, what do you think? Because you're the longest serving member here.
What, oldest, is that what you said?
The best.
I mean, some of these arguments, people drive back out of driveways all over town, everywhere. I mean, that really is not a major issue. I mean, all along Willow Road, people back out of their driveways onto Willow Road. I don't know that we've had many crashes, so And plus the speed limit's only 25 anyways, and nobody ever goes over the speed limit that I know of. So, I mean, I think the concession of taking the deck off the garage is quite a concession. And I think that, you know, having a garage that you put 2 cars in is probably better than the conditions that are there right now.
Excuse me, can I say something actually?
I agree with David Walsh, and yeah, I mean, that's a big concession. Remove that roof deck, and you know, I'm inclined to improve it. You know, if they're willing to make that concession, and I'm willing to approve the rest of the project.
I would suggest that this is a balancing matter, and you know, we've got to make a judgment in terms of the trade-off, and it seems to me that the trade-off is an acceptable balance.
Can I actually say something? This is Michelle Lindsay.
Of course, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. There's actually 2 things I want to say, and number one is I was taking something to the town hall earlier, and I went around that corner, and it isn't the first time this has happened to me. I almost got hit by a truck. That corner is incredibly dangerous, and adding anything to that is going to make it very, very scary. But that isn't my only thing. We're all talking about this, but one of the major issues is that we're talking about putting up a 24 by 24 structure. And if you look at it from the angle of Mark's house, Mark and Tracy's, and our house, we're losing a significant amount of our view. And I know it's not always about the views, but this is why we live here. This is our home. I mean, we've been here, you know, 21, 22 years, and a hardship, it just doesn't seem like that's been established. So I just wanted an opportunity to say that. It's a really big deal for us.
Okay, remind me again, which house is yours? Because you told me earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're at 18 Intervale. We're right across the road from them.
Okay.
So when we look
I
through
was
the
over
yard,
here looking. I'm asking a question. Isn't your property raised up a little bit higher than theirs?
a little bit, but what's happening is we're losing the view through their yard because they're going to put this big structure in there. And also with the concern of, you know, that there's the roof deck, and I don't know what's going to happen ultimately in the future. But what was happening is that was going to add a lot of height to it. And then of course you're going to have people up there, and it's like, right, we've already talked about all this. I'm sorry. I just, we're going to lose a significant amount of our view. That's upsetting me. And also that corner has scared me since I've moved here.
Let me just make a point here. I think the new garage structure will actually be lower than the present garage because the present garage has a roof on it. Is that correct?
As a peaked
Lower,
roof.
but longer. So
Well, longer, but not higher.
it changes.
No, you're correct. It's not higher.
It's not higher.
It's
We'll,
just,
we'll have the same view over,
it's wider.
but it's so much wider that we're losing a significant portion. And I just don't understand the.
You're going to get more view over it, which you
No, we're
don't have
not.
now.
Right.
Oh,
It's
Carl,
not.
please, I'm sorry. I don't,
It's
no.
geography. You have
It
to.
is not true. We're not getting more view.
It's geography. You have to get
You're
more
saying
view
that,
if
and
the
that's
roof is lower.
No, this has been your, you know, your reasoning behind it, but you're saying like you're doing us a favor. You're not really, you're taking space and our view. And this is why we're all here. And this is why it's so significant to us.
I understand, but this is
It
why we're
isn't
compromising.
doing us a favor.
This is why we're compromising. This is why we're lowering the roof.
I'm just saying,
That's
lowering
exactly
it
why
isn't
we're
going to
here.
give us a better view. You're taking away our view.
I'm not gonna, I can't agree with that.
Okay, so
So
if everybody,
I move that we make a finding that the proposed garage without the roof railings and without the stairway is not substantially more detrimental.
I will.
Yes, I
motion.
second the motion.
All right.
seconded by Peter Barber? No, sorry, David Walsh.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Yeah.
And any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Do you have the
David,
conditions
want to say
now?
something?
David
Sorry.
Walsh, aye.
Are the conditions
McCool,
act-
aye.
Are there
Yes.
conditions?
The conditions are that without the roof railings, without the roof stairs. In other
and
words,
and
I'm sorry, and what?
and then otherwise as proposed as far as width?
Correct. Yes.
Yep. Wouldn't that come in the second motion?
Correct.
Well, we can, yeah,
That
we
was
can
my-
have it in both.
If you want.
But I did clause it in what I first proposed.
Okay, so first we have to make the finding, which we just did. And I'm sorry, we didn't finish the vote, I don't think. I said any discussion on the motion, and then I heard from some people, but there was a little breakup. So I need to hear, all in
David Walsh.
favor of.
David Walsh says aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Now we need a motion for the permit.
Okay, I'll move that we grant the permit for the garage and specifically saying that there cannot be a deck on the garage in perpetuity. You cannot come back to the board to add a deck at a later time
Or a stairway.
or a stairwell.
And is that for a special permit, David?
That's correct.
Second.
And so you think that we can do that for an accessory building because I just want to have, is there any discussion on the motion? And can we do that with a special permit where it's an accessory building, which is, do we need to make a finding that the accessory building is part of the residence or the structure?
Why would we be less able to clause the granting of a special permit as to an accessory building than to a main building?
Well, I believe we can because I believe that it's part of the property itself, the accessory building. We've actually dealt with this before, and I think we should make a finding to that effect at some point.
I would be happy. I would be happy to do it, but I'm not following what it is that you think is called for.
Okay. Well, is the accessory, does it apply to special, in other words, if we can make under Balada, for example, right? We can make I'm not gonna bother sharing that, it's too late. We can grant a special permit, a variance isn't necessarily required when we're extending, modifying, or existing a nonconformity in a single or two-family structure. But this is not a single or two-family structure, it's an accessory building. So, but is it part of the residence, is what I'm trying to ask. And I believe in our definition, in our bylaws, it says that the accessory building is part of it. So, Dave Walsh, what do you think? Should we check that?
I think we can do it this way. I don't know. Are you suggesting that it should not be a special permit and that it should be a variance because it's an accessory building?
Right, that's what I was wondering if we should talk about that, because I wasn't 100% sure about that. Pretty sure I remember seeing something to that effect.
I cannot remember which it is.
So are you saying that this would be solved, Jocelyn, by a motion to make a finding that the garage is a portion of the main building?
Well, I'm not sure we need a motion, but I guess I wanted to talk about the definition and whether it applied.
Well, I'm not sure that there's anything that we can do or ought to do that's going to make a difference. Either we're within our powers to act as has been proposed, or we're not. And if somebody feels that we're not, then they may bring a proceeding accordingly.
Right. We want to avoid that if we can. I'm I'm just trying to, just taking a minute to look at this, so just give me a minute, I want to take a look at
Sure.
these, definitions and see if I can't find it. All right, so it's like looking for a needle in a haystack right now, but the principal use. We actually dealt with this one other time. Something very similar. All right, so bottom line is whether or not we feel as though we can give a special permit under these circumstances, or whether we want to provide for a variance, whether we have enough information here to provide for a variance. And so that's the question. We've had some discussion on the motion. Why don't we just take a vote and move on? So all in favor?
Okay, there is a motion before us and we need to act on that, but are you saying that I hadn't even understood that you were contemplating a variance? So are you suggesting we act on it as a special permit and then double back and do it as a variance as well?
Michael, we need to act on the motion that's before us, and so what we're doing just now is just discussing the motion, discussing the motion. We don't always have a discussion, but in this case, I just was questioning it because I wanted to look for the definitions and it's getting late.
Right.
So at this point, we have a permit, an application, sorry, we have a motion before us, David, and would you mind reading it again?
Okay. I move that we grant a special permit for the garage as designed without any stairs or deck on it in perpetuity.
And who's seconding the motion?
Second.
Yelling at me. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye, David Walsh.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
And Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Okay, so we've got granted a special permit with restrictions. And that will take about 2 weeks to get filed, and then we will have a 20-day appeal period. And then after that, you'll be all set.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Before you adjourn, will we be notified?
What's that? Sorry.
Will we be notified when the appeal period starts?
Yes, you'll be getting a copy of the appeal.
And that will
Copy
start,
of,
it will start 10 days from now, is that what you said?
No, we typically file our decisions in about 2 weeks,
Yeah,
and then there's a 20-day appeal period after that.
okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion
Now
to
I'll make
adjourn
a-
was brought by David Walsh.
I'll make a
Anyone
motion
second
to
that?
adjourn.
I'll
Thank you,
second the
everybody.
motion. David McCool.
All right, any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor?
David Walsh, aye.
David McCool, aye.
Mike Raworth, aye.
Caitlin Kelly, aye.
Jocelyn Campbell, aye. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay,
Take care.
thank you.
Good night.